Yes, indeed. Another blessed occasion. Let's get it in. Islam is a family. How you be? Dr. Gerald Muhammad.
Islamism, National Assistant Grand Chairman. How bidst thou this morning, God man?
Oh man, you know, it's another beautiful occasion, man. You know, to be on the manifest and be able to know who we are, who I am. You know what I mean? You and I tie, unity, Islam. Islam to the goddess and queen over there with you as well.
Islam.
Swift Angel 151, Islam, grand man. How you be this grand manifest?
Islam, family.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Islam, Dr. Torre, I'm gonna chime out for a minute. I got to get my vice counsel.
Okay. Gratitude. Peace and love. Yes, indeed. Dr. Bati Bey, how you be, grand man?
Wonderful. How you be? Just as much as ever, as we say.
Oh man, that's a beautiful thing we talk about. Knowledge
Yes,
itself. Islam. Well, you got y'all. How can I say you ready? You ready to rock and roll?
As always.
All right then. Well, that being said, do you need me to help you out with anything?
No, I think we got the Moors online, and we can direct the show from them. Islam.
Hey, well, Islam, grand man. All right.
Gratitude and peace and love, brother.
Oh my goodness, you know what to say. Love and talk clean to me, grand man. Peace and love.
Peace and love. Islam.
Islam. Islam family, we got about 3 minutes before we start this grand occasion. Islam, and today will be orchestrated by Dr. Bati Bey. He orchestrating the floor. Islam.
You want to read the prayer? Islam?
Oh, sure.
And
I'll be right behind you.
Islam.
Hey, you call me out, man.
Islam. And then Mubasa Baby. 151.
Yeah, he on the manifest.
Yeah, I see him.
Yeah.
The Divine Constitution. That's what I was trying to get. And then the chapter of the week, I
got you. Islam. The Divine Constitution.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. Peace and love. Got 2 minutes before we start, family. Oh, my bad, Bati, baby, my bad. Pardon the body.
No, no problem, no problem. You know, I ain't gonna make no fuss.
And like I said, you wanted me to do the prayer, correct?
Islam, gratitude, brother.
All right, I'm muting now.
I guess I got a second.
Islam family.
Islam.
Gratitude.
Islam, Dr. Muhammad Evans Bey, Consul General of Texas Territory, Islam.
Gratitude. Love to all the more online.
Islam have returned. Gratitude.
Islam.
Islam, Dr. Levi Bey, Vice Consul General, South Carolina Consulate, Grand Rising to all. Peace and love.
Islam. Time never was. Islam. We get this meeting started. It is upon that hour. Dr. Torrey Simpson Bey, Assistant Grand Chairman. Would you like to open us up with prayer?
Islamism.
Islam.
Islam, Islam, Islam. Let us rise and give praise to our Father God Allah, and honors to our holy prophet, Nabi Ali, honors to everything that is Moorish, our grand national flag, emblem and seal, our divine constitution and bylaws of Moorish America. Islam, Islam, Islam. I am Dr. Torrey Rasul Simpson Bey, National Assistant Grand Chairman of Moorish America. And while I open up the way with our ancient commission at that prayer, I ask that you open up your hearts and minds for another grand occasion here in our sacred grove. Islam, Islam, Islam. Ya Allah abnu haru maku naturu. Ya Allah abhet haru. Ya Allah ma'at haru. Ya Allah hotep haru. Ya Allah haru. Ya Allah ma'at harakut. Ya Allah awajat dajuti. Ya Allah per im sutek per im haru. Ya Allah bamadut. Al-Hajjat Chefs Rep 2 Ali. Ameen. Aliyasa. Yes, sir. Aliyasa. And that is to say, in transliteration, O Allah, the Father of the universe, O Allah, the Father of love, O Allah, the Spirit of truth, O Allah, the Spirit of peace, O Allah, the Spirit of freedom, O Allah, the Spirit of justice. O Allah, you are my protector, O Allah, you are my guide, O Allah, you are my salvation by night and by day, O Allah, through your holy prophet, O Allah, Drew Ali. Amen. Holy Yessa, Holy Yessa, Holy Yessa. Islam.
The Divine Constitution of Moorish America. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of Moorish America are empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of Moorish America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. The Bylaws. Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday, the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday, the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all citizens must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. No organization of Moorish America is to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6, with us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality in their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, Black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7, all citizens must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish American. And then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband, take care of your children, and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God, Allah. Islam, family.
Islam, and with the recitation of our prayer and our divine constitution, I will read chapter 28. Yehoshua passes the second brotherhood test. Before I do, I would like to give my praises and honors. First, I'd like to rise to give all manner of praise to Allah, honors to the prophet, honors to our theocratic government, our royal council, our flag, seal, emblem, our divine constitution, our swift angels, our muftis, our citizens alike, honors to all the Moors here and there, and honors to all the Moors here on this call and this apparatus to be able to orchestrate this grand meeting. With that, chapter 28, Yehoshua passes the second brotherhood test, justice. The Logos did not care to rest. He said, why wait in this luxurious room? I need not rest. My father's Islam?
Hey, excuse me. The chapter of the week, you say it's 28?
Yes, chapter 28, Yehoshua passes the second brotherhood test, justice.
Okay, I realized, guess I was looking at chapter 12 from last night.
Oh, it's 12?
You know, chapter 12 of the chapter of the week was read last night. I'm more perspective. Islam.
Islam. On the bottom. Chapter 12. Yehoshua reveals to the people of their sinful ways. In all the cities of Orisha, Yehoshua taught at Kemetic by the riverside. He taught, and thousands of the people followed him. One day, a car of juggernauts was hauled along by scores of friends men, and Yehoshua said, behold, a form without a spirit passes by, a body with no soul, a temple with no altar fires. This car of Krishna is an empty thing, for Krishna is not there. This car is but an idol of a people drunk on wine and carnal things. Allah lives not in the noise of tongues. There is no way to him from any idol shrine. Allah's meeting place with man is in the heart, and in a still small voice he speaks, and he who hears it is still. And all the people said, teach us to know the Holy One who speaks within the heart. Allah of the still small voice. And Yehoshua said, the holy breath cannot be seen with mortal eyes, nor can men see the spirit of the Holy One. But in their image, man was made. And he who looks into the face of man looks into the image of Allah who speaks within. And when man honors man, he honors Allah. And what man does for man, he does for Allah. And you must bear in mind that when men harms in thought or word or deed another man, he does wrong to Allah. If you would serve Allah who speaks within the heart, just serve your near of kin and those who are no kin, the stranger at your gates, the foe who seeks to do you harm. Assist the poor and help the weak. Do harm to none, and covet not what is not yours. Then the tongue of your neighbor, then with your neighbor tongue, the Holy One will speak, and he will smile behind your tears, will light your countenance and joy, with joy, and fill your hearts with peace. And then the people ask, to whom shall we bring gifts? Where shall we offer sacrifice? And Yehoshua said, our Father, Allah asks not for needless waste of plant, of grain, of dove or lamb. That which you burn on any shrine you throw away. No blessings can attend to one who takes the food from the hungry's mouth to be destroyed by fire. When you would offer sacrifice unto Allah, just take your gifts of grain or meat and lay it on the table of the poor. For it and an incense will arise in the heavens, which will return to you with blessedness. Tear down your idols, they can hear you not. Turn all your sacrificial altars into fuel for flames. Make human hearts your altars and burn your sacrifice with the fire of love. And all the people were entranced and would have Yehoshua as a god. But Yehoshua said, I am your brother man, just come to show you the way to Allah. You shall not worship man. Praise Allah, the Holy One. Islam, Islam, Islam. And with that, I would like to turn this meeting over to our teacher, the assistant Grand Sheikh, for his portion of the meeting. Islam? With Angel 4. Dr. Asip. Shoot. That's it. Islam, Angel?
Islam. Can you hear me, Grand Man? Islam. Can you hear me, Grand Man?
Islam, yes, I can. Peace and love.
Yes, sir. Peace and love. But let us rise upon the seventh and give all praises to the great God Allah, our Father God Allah, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, El Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere. And therefore, honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything, and I do mean everything, that our holy prophet brought to make us a nation. We give honors to all of you who are on the manifest, everything it is that you have to bring to the manifest. And we say praise be to the great God Allah for being in this new era and time. And we have been most definitely successful in our last session, so to speak, dealing with our Egyptian Adeptus research Septuagint. And we were starting with tracing ourselves back through the languages, you know, and going all the way back to the root. We started with the Arabic aspect. And, you know, we won't tarry in any particular place too long. You see, now that our people have a base and they know how to deal with transliteration and all these things here, all it takes now is just basic application and practice. Because you got all the rules that's needed to know to be able to do that. And we did that in just 3 sessions, you know. Ones can always reach out if they studying in a particular area, and we'll definitely, you know, cover those measures together in that area. But we have to move to the next degree of unfoldment to keep this demonstration moving, you know, accordingly. And so now what we are going to go into the depths of is the HEKAPTAH, you know, and from there we'll end up going into, you know, the Meroitic and what they like to call, you know, Demotic, which we're going to give all the special names of the language exactly what it is from the Kemetic standpoint as well. And so we won't refer to it, you know, it's all right to refer to the HEKAPTAH as the HEKAPTAH because that's what it is, you know. And that term Coptic actually come from HEKAPTAH. But we'll go on into the hieratic, give the proper expression as far as how we will refer to it. And also time frames, time periods, timelines in regards to dealing with these languages as opposed to the European timeline. All of these things will be put on the manifest, as we go throughout exploring, the languages. So it's going to be a grand class as always, but that we can't move forward without first coming from the book of fire. And so we starting at page 322, being conscious of biblical beginnings. And we want to go to 325, and you can stop at the value of a divine history. We don't need but 2 good mores to read these special measures. So do we have any volunteers, Islam?
Islam, Dr. Elvis Bey?
Yes, sir. Islam, brother. So you can go from actually 322 to
Starting? We'll be starting on be conscious of biblical beginnings.
that's right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And
you can go from there until the point of after the beginning corn became the word of God. And you just stop at the bottom of page 323.
yes, sir.
And then whoever it is that will read after you, they will come from there and go to 324 and 325. Islam?
Islam. Gratitude.
Islam.
Islam, Brother Muhammad Bey. Praise be to Allah. All right, Brother Amabadu. You may proceed, brothers.
Islam, Grandshi, where am I reading from? I mean, Sister Grandshi.
You're going to pick up where he left off at. You're going to start from the top of page 324 and stop above the value of a divine history.
Gratitude, Grand Man. Islam.
Islam, gratitude.
Islam. Yes, and that was Bay out of the Texas consulate, rising, giving all praise to the great God Allah, giving highest honors to his prophet, our prophet Noble Drew Ali, El Haj Sharif Abdul Ali. Give high honors to our theocratic government, our Moorish American government. Give high honors to our Act 1. I give high honors to all of our officials. I give honor to this class, our Egyptian Adaptist Research Sultanate class, as well as I give honor to you, Dr. Shadu Amenti Al-Mohedjed Shepswell, for hosting our Egyptian Adaptist Research Sultanate class. As well as I give honor to all those that aided in bringing forth our class this morning. Give honor to everything that's Moorish, our flag, our seal, our emblem, our divine constitution, our holy Quran, our book of Ali, our 101, 102s, our exhuman of a nation, all of our divine revelations I give honor. And I'll begin. Be conscious of biblical beginnings. To this day, most do not know they have been lied to by those who wrote the word of God in their Koine street Greek language. The biblical Adam and Eve saga was among the first literature the first literature the slaves were allowed or force-fed to read, and was greatly enforced with barbaric dosages of the fear of white man, God, by European rulers, slave masters alike. This was the sole purpose of Freemasonry, the Reconstruction Amendments, and the Ku Klux Klan. Their establishments were to save these sinning heathens from their own wretchedness and for the unconscious institutions of slavery's new world order. Albeit, since the Greek's biblical version is the only version of Adam and Eve known to so-called blacks, then let's sojourn there and see what they look like in the light. But bear in mind, the divine origin of the original Hebrew laws of Moses began in the Egyptian mystery system, and the basic European translation of these biblio teachings evolved into a middleman religion of events, which quite candidly he brewed up. Also, remember now as the Moorish Americans began to write their own history, had it not been for Noble Drew Ali's revealing these great truths of the divine origin of African nations, the Western world would not be forced to concede to over 2,000 years of fabricated religious dogma with their information highways and cyberspace intelligence. The true story of Adam and Eve is all about the divine creation and heritage of the original African people. They were not only the first man to people the planet Earth, but their will was emerged with the will of their Father God. Drew Ali placed this in the science of Asiatics and Muslims, the mothers and fathers of the human family. Question number 57. Here, it would be good to note a Muslim is anyone who submits his or her will entirely to the will of the great God. Hence, Adam and Eve were Muslims before they became Asiatics and a human. During the millenniums of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and into the world before they became, and into the world called Asia, there were no Europeans made. The hueless ones of the Netherlands were not even a thought. But now today's pale-skinned nations have had the privilege of governing the earth man, telling his story. All of a sudden, they are the foremost authority on the original first family, Adam and Eve. Surely, this is parallel only to a bastard given the apocalypse of a great-grandparents or hearing fish stories being told by date trees, or a mutt telling the history of his pedigree, or the green monkey that fathered AIDS. Speaking of monkeys, how is it an entire people who proudly proclaims to evolve from primates know the true history about the human family? Was it not these same people who pillaged the prophetic and oral history from the Hebrew tribes in the first place? Not only that, but as unconscious Moors try to paint themselves black into a biblical history, little do they notice it is the pale-skinned nations of Europe themselves who denounce all claims to the biblical human family. This paganistic practice of making God in the image and likeness of man is a gratified weakness amongst the nations of the earth. In these modern times, the nations of Europe named themselves white, then made Yehoshua in their image and called him God. Domesticated African slaves being forbidden first-rate entry into white Freemasonry and white Christianity were allowed to make their own versions of these institutions in the quiet of their slave quarters. Today, these are various MEC fraternal orders and Christian denominations fully equipped with their own versions of the Bible, complete with black Yehoshuas and surrounding characters in their image and likeness. Oh, the horrors of fallen humanity. Can all this be blamed on the rabbit hormones of Mr. and Mrs. Monkey? The biblical story of Adam and Eve, as told by many religions of the cross, originated from Moses and various Hebrew slave tribes of Africa. Most of the tribal stories lost their spiritual significance in the translations from African origins to European carnal comprehension. What was later reported to the world diluted and spiritually deprived versions of Greek interpretations of the creation and fall of man. These diverted rays of the truth were not the real thing, but have predominantly hatched the modern West. Not to speak radical against the church, but it seems to me anyone who teaches man cannot be perfected and then give the great God a mama named Mary should know eventually they would have to face the truth sought by inquiring minds. How did Greeks fit into biblical history? Turning to the centuries surrounding the life of Yehoshua BC-AD, history reveals the Romans and Greeks were governing Palestine, question number 28. In fact, Greek was made the national language, although the indigenous, like Yehoshua, continued to speak Aramaic. 2 Kings 18:26 / Ezra 4:7, the tongue of their forefathers. This is similar to English being made the national language of the United States, although the surviving Canaanite tribes, Indians, continue to speak Athabascan and other indigenous dialects. True history will also reflect the Greeks thought all languages other than Greek sounded like blah, 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 boham blah, and considered all non-Greeks barbarians. There are two levels to Greek language. There are two levels to the Greek language: classical, correct or proper Greek, and Koine. Koine Greek is the everyday common street language with standard colloquial trash talking expressions and general ad-libbing Greek. After the beginning, Koine became the word of God. You guessed it, the Septuagint, first translation of the Bible, was translated entirely in Koine Greek. Naturally, since the Greeks and Romans give themselves the title of God, question number 92, and wrote their Bibles in Greek and Latin, it is not strange for today's Black Christians, etc., to defend their master's book as the Word of God. To most of them, the only God they To most of them, the only God they have ever known is the same masters, which wrote the Bible and then used the same book to justify the maafa of African enslavement. Actually, the origin of the word of God began as the words of the ancient pharaohs and simply means voice of the ruler of the land. Question number 93. People, namely called Negroes, who refer to the Bible as being the word of God, make Europeans, white men, their God. This does not mean there are no truths in the Bible, quite the contrary. What this means is the Bible is not and was not ever the word of God, but the words of the Greeks. It does not matter how much the NBC pastors hawk, sweat, and spit in the name of Jesus. The letter J, pale-skinned God, and all came from the Greeks and was traumatized into the slaves by their European brothers. Islam. Dr. Muhammad?
Islam, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Islam, gratitude. Islam, Dr. Gerald Hamid Muhammad Bey, Consul General of South Carolina Consulate. I want to give praise to Allah, honors to his holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I want to give honors to our Moorish American government, our Moorish American nation, and everything Moorish. And I want to give honors to this consultant research class this morning. Honors to our National Assistant Grand Sheikh Islam. It must be remembered in the minds of the Greeks, they were the only gods as a people they could not fathom divine origin and subsequently could not perceive a God greater than themselves, unless it was an African God-man whom they called Yehoshua to this very day. No European nation ever knew or worshiped the great God. As Joe Ali wrote, man's highest ideal is his God. The Greeks, at their greatest, were not powerful enough to completely hide the holy light of Africa that was centralized in ancient Kemetic, Egypt. Nevertheless, once the truth has been confounded, it is no longer pure and can do more harm than healing. Where the Greeks and other Europeans have fallen short on African comprehensions is for anyone to know the spirit they must be, the spirit. The Greeks, neither Romans nor any of the pale-skinned invaders of the Holy Lands, never fully understood the spiritual foundation of Hebrew, Aramaic, the sister language of Arabic, nor of any other 200 languages of Akubulan. Note, Akubulan means mother of mankind, or Garden of Eden. It is in the descendant language Swahili of the ancient Kushite. Akubulan is the indigenous name given to the continent later misnomered Africa by the Romans. Her first true and divine name is Amexem, which means land of the holy gods, or land of the holy people, Moorish Holy Quran 46:3. The reason for this lack of transliteration is not because Africans were the primitive monkey-built pagans as portrayed by virtually every European Bible pusher since Constantine, 280 to 370 to 337 AD. It is simply because they could not understand the boundless spirit realm. They could not measure what they could not see with their carnal eyes. The world of hallowed covenants, holistic cultures, and the line uniting divinity and matter is incomprehensible to those unable to see inward, see the third eye. This was the foremost lesson for the Adamites to learn. Whenever European rulers fail to understand the infinite and the timeless, they will either try to destroy or distort subsequent manifests. These thoughts draw strength from the bowels of envy, lust, and hatred. It is in the nature of hatred to be short-sighted, a slave to time, and fearful of anything it does not create. Therefore, the foundations of the Bible rest upon a great conspiracy. It was the amalgamation between the Sanhedrin, beginning with Caiaphas, and the government of Europe, and the government of European rule to nationalize the Jewish religion under the Roman government. The world's greatest cover-up since Adam tried to hide from his maker had begun. Rome's subjugation of Israel's religion is rooted in the feigned crucified death and resurrection of Rabboni Yahushua. Those Jews who would not conform to the government's version of Judaism, were later called Christians, not because they were pious like Yahushua the Christ, but because the title Christian distinguished the rebellious Jews from those willing to compromise under the Roman yoke and law. Yes, the first Christians were Jews. This is why Yahushua warned John, beware of those who call themselves Jews and are not, Revelations 2:9. Today, this Roman assumable jurisdiction of civil customs is reenacted in the United States takeover of prohibition and the lottery numbers, games, etc. Remember, selling liquor and running numbers were crimes of felony when acted by America's common people. But a government control of poor people's pleasures was legalized by the use of one word, license. A license is a document of authorization to practice that would otherwise be illegal, Black Law's Dictionary. Oppression can do strange and often unimaginable things to the human mind. Weak-minded Jews became Christians the same way pork-free African Muslims have become pig feet eating Negro Christians of USA today. The powerful effects of oppression have never been truly measured on the minds of US slaves. The Bible, with its Hebrew Greek version of Adam and Eve, was siphoned from the Israelites during their state of iron hand oppression. The Greeks recognized the Kemetic Egyptian influence in the Mosaic laws because Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Hippocrates, etc., had all received their formal education in the Egyptian mystery system, not to mention the notorious Alexander the Greek. The reader should also remember Moses, being raised as an Egyptian aristocrat, received the foremost teachings of his ancient Adept mystery system. These teachings also included perfection of the God self, with his powers of dominion over all other living things created by the seven eyes of Allah, the Elohim. This is why the Pharaoh's heart appeared hardened. Pharaoh simply knew all the sciences of the God-man, which Moses had mastered before being exiled. The Egyptian sages were simply not impressed with the exploits by one of their former students, who they viewed now as a traitor for taking the secret teachings into those forbidden lands in the north. Yehoshua, the prophet, also received these lessons. Sunmun Bunnun, in Egyptian temples featuring Siatenoti, meaning man know thyself. See religious finale. Back to the Greeks. The book of Moses, collectively called the Torah, translated from the Hebrew language containing no vowels into the Greek, lost a world of spiritual definition in the very first draft of the Bible's Old Testament. The Greek version of the Holy Bible, called the Septuagint, the Greek word for 70, 70 is also the Egyptian number for brotherhood. The Septuagint acquired its title from the Council of 70 rabbis that convened to translate the Torah into a low-class Greek language. All subsequent Bibles trickled down from this one, in essence, the Roman Catholic, Latin, the infamous King James Version, spurned more than 3,000 variations, edited, revised, and fraternal Word of God. Did I mention the Holy Quran and the ancient Bhagavad Gita has never been changed? This history is pertinent to Adam and Eve because most of the westernized world is only aware of the biblical version, yet the Bible was never written by a single prophet, as are other sacred tablets. This is because every major prophet always leaves a holy book of guidance for their special people. And while most Christian scholars are drenched in a maze of unresolved questions about Adam and Eve, Cain, the flood, Moses, the missing 18 years of Yehoshua's life, etc., etc., rarely do anyone who titled the Bible holy in the first place, or who said it is the word of God. Another master question is, since there is no difference between the great God and his name, who is the God that wrote the Holy Bible? Truth is, the era of Moses was about 1300 BC. The oldest Hebrew story in the Bible only dates back to a little less than 4000 BC. Good gracious. There are pyramids and mounds older than these Hebrew stories. The ancient seafaring Moabites had circumnavigated the entire continent of Amexem by 8000 BC. There were many African civilizations that gave birth to the tribes of Israel, collectively known as Hebrews. In fact, it is not strange that Adam's son Cain already knew his wife, although they were in Nod or Nod, east of Eden, Genesis 4:16-17. The entire story of Adam and Eve makes the two great civilizations. The first was during the founding of Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu. This one was before the catastrophic earthquake, which is often confused with a 40-day biblical monsoon called the flood. When Moses led the tribes out of Egypt east into the promised land, did I mention the Moabites were already using Moab? The Amorites were busy in Ammon. There were some Canaanites still in Canaan. In other words, the promised land was already being occupied by natives of that era. An accurate history would also reflect that the promised land was another lawful province in ancient Kemetic, Egypt. During this time, the only gods of the civilized world were the pharaohs, who were the rulers of the earthland. They were not too pleased with those who called themselves Jews squatting on their land across the sea. It seems the descendants of those self-proclaimed Jews of that era will be repeating the same exodus 3,300 years later in the 1948 Western Back Proclamation of Islamic Occupied Territory. Proclamation of Islamic Occupied Land. Case in point, the biblical Hebrew stories are not the true origin of the human family. These stories are mostly abstract versions of the divine creation, fall, and perfection of man. These histories of the world were learned by an enslaved people, Hebrews, while under Kemetic rule and mysterious system. The world's first religious creed, Islamism. By slaves never being greater than their master, they rarely understand the origin or nature of their master's creed. Anyway, the original Hebrews with Moses' Egyptian teachings did not believe that God or man had beginnings, nor did they believe that spirit man could die, not as long as the great God lives. The Egyptians had taught Moses that man is a perfect being. This is why the great Torah in its original Hebrew text is by far more accurate than today's infamous word of God, but only a few NBC people dig back far enough to the origin of a given matter. The truth of the creation and fall of man states, time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. Most Holy Quran, chapter 1. In contrast to this immutable truth, the Greek's Holy Bible gave God, the creation, and man various time slots, with the Bible's infamous opening alpha passage of in the beginning, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning is the Greek misinterpretation of the Hebrew oral history. It became the start of today's once upon a time introduction to some Western stories. Only one kind of person would equate the infinite absolute with the finite duration called time. But perhaps this is why Noble Drew Ali stated, finite mind cannot comprehend things infinite. Ironically, the majority of the man-made people, American Negro, blacks, have not figured out one major problem. With all the religious and political world rulers and evangelistic preaching about love for humanity, why is it that none of the major religions teach the truth of who they are? But then again, the problem itself has been a secret till now. Now, with some of the biblical discrepancies and other Greek-Roman slants to the original man aforementioned, let us now remind ourselves of Africa's Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, as documentation, is the ancient Kemetic and Moabite record of spirit man's descent into human form and conscious liberation back to the all of his God state again. For those Black African Americans, especially stuck in the stupor of disbelief and never questioned what God, Greek, is the Bible truly the word of God, they need to review one historical revelation. The modern world is nearly 86% populated by people of olive skin. There are Bibles in all of them, even Islamic countries. Yet, how many nations and tribes of African descent, all people of hue, own and rule their indigenous land without European intervention. But the Bible and its trademark, the cross, are in these places. And who is, excuse me, and who is the economic and more often than not political, social, and religious ruler of their lands? How much has truly changed since the era of Brother Joshua, see Illuminati. So what does this have to do with Adam and Eve? Value, just plain value. Security is what gives a thing value. An accurate, unbiased, truthful history of place, person, and time is what gives it value. Security is a manifest of purity, cleanliness, and truth. To see Adam, Ish, and Eve, Isha, in their God state as the original man chosen to be made from the soils of Edom, Amexem, Akubulan, Africa. Then as the first humans to walk the earth is to know their true history. The true history of Adam and Eve is so infinitely valuable to the Moorish. These were the children of Adam, Ish, and Eve, Isha, because they honored them as their divine link to their creator. As long as the Moorish nations remembered their sacred origin, they could not be mentally enslaved. This is why it took the nations of Europe under the Roman Catholic Christian Crusades 2,000 years to break the minds of the Moors and whitewash away Adam and Eve from their memories. In fact, without speaking radical, the Bible is the chief agitator of the whitewashing machine of Adam and Eve. This is the reason they, the prophets and Yehoshua, appear suddenly pale-skinned in the final rents of the colored churches of today's Vatican subsidies. Islamism.
Islam, grand man, for that drawing. Praise be to Allah. Islamism without the schism. Want to give honors to both of you, my Moorish kin, Brother Marvin Evans Bey, as well as you, Brother Muhammad Bey, for bringing, that grand measure on the manifest in regards to dealing with your reading, and everything that our Moorish kin are doing here in this new era in time, when it comes to uplifting fallen humanity. And we just say gratitude, Islamism without the schism, and it don't get no plainer than the way that we bringing it over here in Moorish America. We just have a lot of work to do when it comes to basically reteaching our people and taking those things away from us that have been bestowed upon us by our slave maker, slave breaker, slave catcher, and slave holder. We have been taught to take the remix of the truth as being the original, and nothing can be further from the truth, so to speak. You see? And I just want to come forth and give our Moorish kin grand insight, and we putting everything in perspective, Moorish kin. Let there be no mistake about it. We are here to give our Moorish kin the truth, and we are here to make things plain. And as we already spoke, we have laid a foundation so that our Moorish kin will be able to get a drawing in the other linguistics of the Arabic. And it's on our Moorish kin to do their research to go further into that, because our Moorish kin now have a foundation. They also have videos to go back to and look at and basically master that language. But now, again, we are moving to the HEKAPTAH. And when I say HEKAPTAH, that includes what a lot of people like to call Greek. You see, and the reason why, because the HEKAPTAH, is the same alphabet as what they like to call Greek. The only difference is those who are calling it Greek now only call it that, so that may again be able to what we call superimpose themselves into our history and make it seem as if they were as ancient as we are. But the true so-called Greeks, like Aristotle, and so forth and so on, we showed pictures of them melanated as ever, but these ones gave all of their credit to the ancient Kemites. They spoke on the fact that it was the ancient Kemites whom they learned everything from, and they considered their lessons Kemetic. They didn't consider their lessons or the language that they learned, Greek. All of this came later under the European domination. And we told our family about the 33rd dynasty, which was their 33rd degree, which had to do with our mastery and being mastered over. So we got to break ourselves out of the habits of using that terminology Greek, when we refer to anything, when we look at this particular alphabet that we'll go into. And we have measures that we're going to bring on the manifest to refresh the hearts and minds of our people, because it's always good to use the hammer of repetition so that our Moorish kin know exactly where we're coming from and what it is that we are referring to. When we go into this special area, we see everything that has been written about this so-called corn Greek and the Greeks and all of this in the book of fire. And we know that this corn Greek is nothing more than what was originally, known as, Egyptian, later called Phoenician. You see, when we go into that universal alphabet that went all the way across to the west coast of Africa and became even known there as Iberic. You see, so there was each nation that draw from that special drawing. And so the other symbols, as far as how they choose to shuffle them, and turn them around, turn them upside down, put one here before that, that has no bearing, because in all actuality, still dealing with the same language, and another measure as well, the sounds. You see, though the symbols may have changed over time, the sounds in their pronunciation, the root of 22 letters remain a base. And that's at the basic aspect of dealing with all of the abjad. If you go across it, 22 letters are there. And then you will have more that were added on, but the Kemetic aspect goes even back to the 28, expression. But you will see mainly when you go through all of those systems, the first 22 letters of all abjad languages, they are the same. No matter if you go into what you call Phoenician, what they like to call Hebrew, which we know is nothing more than, box Hebrew, Proto-Sinaitic, Proto-Canaanite, they all go in the same order if they start with the abjad. And if you see any change in it, it's something that came later. We can't emphasize that enough. So what I want to do at this particular point, just to give us some insight into this special measure, let me go here, right? I want to open up and share my screen. Okay, just give me 1 second, Morris King. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. And I'm gonna briefly go through this particular measure here so we can get into the actual drawings in relation to dealing with the language itself.
You already, look at you.
I'm trying to open up another. I got another PDF I'm trying to open up before I share my screen. Okay. Make sure I got everything on point. Okay, here we go, right here. Let's see. There we go. Okay. That should be good there. Right. One more. I thought I had already had this one open up. Right. Yeah, yeah. Okay, there we go, right there. That's what we're looking for. You know, we can always go back to all of these particular measures and find those things that are most important in regards to dealing with the language. Okay, so let me share my screen right now, Morris Ken. And I had did a actual video on this called The Stolen Legacy, for those who would like to go back and look at it, you know, and we're gonna just really breeze through this a special measure here, just to give a brief back history, because we want to deal more with going into certain aspects of the language. But it's key points that we must have in mind. You know, there were the people that were known during the ancient times, known as the Kemetic, right? And these particular ones are actually those who became the indigenous inhabitants, you know, of Rome and Greece and so forth and so on. You know, so we want more to do their research on it. But if you look at them, you're gonna notice a trait that they always kept. That hair is most definitely something that you can't forget. You see, that's something that they kept. You see the locks coming down off of it the way they did it, you know, but this was the original people, you know, in that particular region. Now, when we come to dealing with the language, I pointed this out to our Moorish kin, and this was actually dealing with a comparative chart between what is known today as the Coptic alphabet and what they call the Greek, and we call it the HEKAPTAH. We're going to get into that in a second as well. We're going to get into our sources and all of that right there in a minute. You know, and these sources are just given to you so that you can do your research. And this is what I speak of when I talk about the order of the abjad. Even here, if you go into it, you know, you're going to see that they are always the same. But you will see what letters are interchangeable as you go across the languages. You know, you will learn, you know, what letter is used instead of another letter, so to speak. But nevertheless, when you look at these characters, family, you know, the A and the B, you see here, this right here is the G, but you see they just reverse on one aspect over here, but it stayed the same here. But, you know, it's still the same alphabet. You know, when you look at all of them, we already know how they take small variation. You go all the way down here between what they call in Greek and Coptic. You know, no matter how you try to chop it up or put a spin on it, family, the alphabet is the same. Up until the fact that we have, you know, the 32 of the Coptic and just, you know, the few that they have over here in this little Greek, you know, that they call in Greek, right? So only difference is they took away about 7 or 8 letters, so to speak, from their original language, you know, that they had, and then start calling that Greek, right? At least that's the way it's written in history. So what is the purpose, we would have to ask ourselves, of calling it Greek if they say that corn Greek derived from Phoenician, and we know this to be the truth? Then this would mean that the true alphabet had to go back to the Phoenician time, which goes back beyond the time period that the European try to give, which is around the 330 BC. You know, they give it right around that time right there, which lets you know if your language is only that old and you go to talk about a Rosetta Stone with Greek on it, well, we know the Kemites didn't have nothing to do with that. If your Greek originated, this is key. If your Greek so-called script that you come up with originated around 337 BC, you know, around that time. If it originated during that time, family, then this means the ancient Kemites couldn't have wrote the Rosetta Stone because they didn't write in it in the form that you have, right? You see? That's another, that's just a one to grow on. So moving briefly, this is another picture, you know, of the Keftah, you know, those who would be called, we can call them the indigenous inhabitants of what they like to call, you know, the land of Greece. You know, when you talk about the Greeks and the Romans, you pretty much can put them all in one bunch in all actuality. You know, and you see that they knock noses off of these. You can see more like Asiatic features on them. You know, definitely look like, you know, a brother. And a lot of the Kemites had them Asiatic features. You know, when you go all the way back to certain areas like China and Japan. But this is a depiction of Hannibal here. You see? Then you go to getting into many different measures here of the Etruscans. You see? Brother got on a dashiki. But yeah, you see, we already know that these are depictions in the Greek art themselves, so to speak. Look at the little 3 steps. But you see this one, look at these are your original indigenous inhabitants, what they look like. You see? And we showed the Trojan head. All this we just given for back history. So when you hear us talking about these things, you'll know what's going on. Now look at the timeline here. The Etruscan head with gold overlay, right? Notice this beard style. I told you about the dreads of the, you know, above up there. But notice the beard style here. You see? Look at the skin. You know, that's definitely, look at all around here. You know, you see a slenderness in the nose on there, but you can definitely see these Asiatic features as well. So Etruscan head with a gold overlay, this is 700 BC. Now, mind you, this is before the so-called people calling themselves Greeks. In 330, here's another one from the early period. Remember the locks. We're gonna get into that as well. You know, all melanated. You know, we already know, you know, a brother that looked like this brother here. This is another Etruscan, 600 BC. So we seeing all the way up to the time 600 BC, the people were still retaining their Asiatic features and their melanated looks. You know, when you talking about the Etruscans, you're talking about what they like to call Greek. You know good and well that's a brother right there. And this one is from 500 BC, right? So this is why we don't get offended when one talking about the Greeks wrote that. Do you know who the original inhabitants of the land was? All these people look like somebody we done seen somewhere. I'm pretty sure. You see Etruscan, again, 500 BC. Now this is getting closer to 330 BC now, right? But yet and still, you still see they have retained their features. This is another one, you know? Come on, man. We all know who these people is. We done went over these things, but these things matter more right now. Look at this. That look like a European to you. Now, this is Rome in 100 AD. That's after the fact. So that means there were Romans, and it don't surprise us because we know some Italians and all of them that still look, you know, as dark as, you know, ever. But this is 100 years AD. Look at that. Look at the features. And this hair is a telltale of the Kemetic roots. Because if you go back, this is the main hairstyle, even when it came to the Demari. That's the same hairstyle the Demari wore. That's the same hairstyle that the Nubians wore as well. It's another bust of one that is dealing with the Roman, you know. Come on, man. Look at this. There's another nose destroyed. That's why I keep telling you, everywhere they go, they see you. Everywhere they go, they see you, family. And that's a real ancient relic there. You can tell by the fact that it's so undeveloped. You know, here are other images that they knocked the heads off of. The same hairstyle here. So they were growing them locks over there. You know, the Etruscans, that was one of their main things. They kept their hair coarse. Here's one even from Alexandria, 200 BC. Still retaining, you know, that melanated hue, so to speak. You see? Still retaining all of that melanated hue. We know them our people. We know them our people. Everything we heard, we know is a lie. Look at all of this. Come on, Moors. You can't make that up. You can't say that's Photoshop. Look at this. Yet and still, these are more, you know, so-called Greeks, right? 400 BC, 500 BC. So when we get to talking about these languages, and then I tell you about the HEKAPTAH, this is the HEKAPTAH, the Kiftihu. You see? These are the ones from whence the so-called Greece end up coming forth getting everything. Look right here, speaking of Carthage here. So when you hear them talking about Carthage and Hannibal and all of that right there, now it makes sense. And this is one of the reasons why they call Italians Roman niggers. You know, our sheik had gave us a drawing. I forgot the name of the movie, but he showed us some things on one of the movies. We was even showing that the ties between the ancient Phoenician language, you know, and these so-called Greeks. In all actuality, this is Punic right here. This ain't even cuneiform, right? That come from, you know, the time of the Phoenician. This is Punic. Look at this, found. And, you know, sometimes they get into calling Libico, Berber, and all these things as well. But look at this cuneiform right here, right? That's coming from the Phoenician. Look at the Phoenician. We know that's us. So you can see the connection between this ancient people, you know, which the Phoenicians are from, you know, Mesopotamia, the Cushites, the Syrians, all of them really were the same people, but just different tribes within one group. They all come from the ancient Cushites family. That's why the Arabs trace a lot of their stuff back to them. The Hebrews, so-called, the Israelites trace themselves back, you know. And we also got pictures of ones with the fez. You can see that right there. One has a similar like the Taj on his head there. You know, even the headdress. But yeah, this is not cuneiform here. This is, well, it's cuneiform, but this wasn't called cuneiform. This is called Punic. But it's still the same as the cuneiform, so to speak. So, man, I mean, and we even went into the aspect of showing the origin of the word more. You know, this is a Phoenician bust as well right here from 1100 BC. You see? And I went to showing all the different forms of the alphabet. This is what they was calling Corn Greek right here. And if you notice it, Corn Greek is the same as the Hebrew. This is that universal alphabet that I was talking about, pretty much go across the boundaries of every land, even though people may have created their own. You see? Yeah. And they also got an alphabet like this, you know, like I said, that they call Corn Greek. But then they come here and come up with these symbols, which were really nothing more that we showed than an alteration from what was already on the manifest. And I'm going to show you this in a minute when I go to pulling these other sources up. I'm just going through these things to refresh your mind on the alphabet. You know, and this is the Etruscan old italic alphabet. Take a look at it. That's that same alphabet that they was calling Corn Greek, Phoenician, right? This is the Etruscan alphabet. Now I just showed you who the Etruscans is up here, right? So we should not be surprised, you know, to see an alphabet coming from them. You know, so how can that alphabet be called Greek when the Etruscans was already demonstrating, which they got it from the Phoenicians, same thing. You see what I'm getting at? I mean, it don't get no plainer than this is stuff they try to hide from. Now, when you look at this alphabet, you know, there it is, the Phoenician, right? Then they call it, well, Hebrew here. They might turn a few letters over here, make different markers on them, but the majority of the letters stay the same. Early Aramaic, same alphabet, right? Early so-called Greek, you see? Same alphabet with the exception of trying to turn certain symbols around. Opposite, or take a little piece off of it. It's still dealing with the same classical Greek. You see? Etruscan. You see? Early Latin. All of them pretty much evolved. This is the most universal alphabet. This is the one that go back to the Tower of Babel here, right? So, again, these are, again here, the Phoenician alphabet, as they call it, right? And we get further back into it than this. Archaic, Eastern, Western, still showing the same thing. Paleo Hebrew script, same alphabet. Right? Here is a writing. When you go back to Assyrian, they're using the alphabet. Don't that look like the Emerald Tablet of Tehuti? Very similar to the Iberic language. See, one has a headdress on, got like the little tassel hanging down from it, you know, look like a Taj as well. And right here, we have Paleo Hebrew script and all of that. We done went through all of these things. Here it is again. They're calling it Proto-Canaanite variation here, 1200 to 1050 BC, which supersede the so-called Greek, because they want to try to say that this is Greek over here now when it existed way back then. You see how crazy this is? You take a language and say it originated in 330 BC or wherever, but it already existed. Them alphabets was on the manifest way back during this time. How you gonna try to pull the wool over somebody's eyes? And they eat it up. The people crazy. Look at this alphabet, family. Same alphabet. They use the term archaic to make it look like they was back here during this time. Huh? Then they go into their so-called classical Latin Greek. So you can see the evolution of even the English language on how they segued their way into the manifest with that demonstration. Here's what they call the Moabite stone, which is a black stone. The Moabite stone, same language. And we know who the ancient Moabites is. We know who that is, right? Here's some other inscriptions that were found as well. And these was in the area of what you call it, Carthage. Carthaginian, which we already know why now, because we done went through the history. You know, even when you go back among those, this is pre-Islamic Arabia, you can also see that same alphabet on the manifest here as well. See, this is getting into all your Iberic and all of that right there. The same style of writing, which we brought you back up here again to the Emerald Tablets. We showed all of these things to you. This is just refreshing the mind. See what we have here? They have a boxier style of it there. They have a more primitive form of writing it there, but A lot of the alphabets in the Iberic script, they're all rooted in those same letters, but just a different variation of it, right? Come back over here. This is their so-called biblical Hebrew to English, right? And they saying Hebrew is the first and oldest alphabet. Why are they trying to claim that? They trying to claim the symbols, so to speak, the pictograms. They're not claiming that original stuff you see when you see them writing, talking about they Hebrews. They're trying to claim the symbols. And this is how they claim this the first and oldest. And this is actually the alphabet that was adopted by the Canaanites. Remember in the Piscean records, it spoke of, 5 nations speaking the language of Canaan. This particular alphabet that was put together is what they tried to use, in relation to dealing with the hieroglyphics. But this was their, meaning the Canaanites' particular way of putting the alphabet together in their particular form. And they did it comparatively beside the actual letters, in the script, so to speak. So this particular measure here is what they use to try to come up with this concept of hieroglyphics, because the Canaanites had come up with this particular form of inscriptions here. And this is what I was saying when I say they use certain words from what they like the so-called Hebrew and all this other stuff here. Because it's no different than, if you look, pay attention to this. A lot of the sounds, and the letters remain the same. They're showing you different variations. See how the Y and the J and the I is interchangeable? This is a good chart to pay attention to. See how the K and the CH is there, and the S and the X, they're showing you the words that sound like each other. Like even the word P, or fe, the way they do it is actually F should be in here too. You see si and sha and tha, you see all of that, right? In other words, think of it like this. Right now, let's just say if I were to take a bear, an ox, a dog, a cat, and just run them alongside of these alphabets right here, right? And then I say, well, this is my alphabet. The base of the alphabet are the letters. You see, so the symbol I created as a bear, ox, or cat, or dog, or whatever the case may be, but I know that these are letters. You see what I'm saying? And I began to refer to it along those lines with those symbols. That's all the European did when they took from this Canaanite strip, and they developed that because, remember, the Canaanites are nothing more than a Moabite colony that came out, of Kemetic, and they were an admixture, of the Kemites in the Semitic blood, which is the lineage which, your Philocias and all of these individuals come forth from, like what they like to call Moorish Jews, which is a reason why ones were calling themselves the Moorish Zionist Temple at one time. That came from our prophet. You see, when you talk about the Canaanites, in all actuality, you talk about the people that so-calling themselves Hebrew. They need to know this. You see, the so-called Israelite, they were Canaanites, and their history show that. They went into the land of Canaan, all of that, but this was a mixture, of that Cushitic blood, all of that. All we got to do is do the research. But nevertheless, they developed this pictorial expression in Mount Sinai. It was E. Wallace Budge who came later, because the Egyptian wasn't writing with these symbols. This is what was adopted in Mount Sinai as far as the way it came forth. But really, at the base was this same script that was already there. So that's how you really create your own language. And if you notice here, pay attention to this, Moors. Notice they say Mosaic hieroglyphic Hebrew alphabet, right? Look at it compared to what they call in Egyptian hieroglyphics. This is supposed to be Hebrew now. This is hieroglyphic. Look at this. Hebrew so-called, Egyptian hieroglyphic. Look right here, you can see where they took this symbol and turned it, upright. Then they got another variation of it here, right? Then you got the symbol of the man here. Then you had the same thing here, right? This is the more primitive form of it, actually, the stick form. The one that you see more perfected, you know, that's a more modern form of the letter. See here? So when you be looking at so-called this form right here, right in here that they call the Hebrew, that's more modern. This is not what they call, you know, the ancient language of that particular people. You see? Look at this here. And they showing the different variation. You can see, you know, the evolution. You know, it should actually be coming from this way and showing the evolution all the way up into here instead of coming from this way, you know, showing, because you can see it actually devolves, you know, instead of evolve. You know, and I'm using that terminology, you know, just on expression. So you see it, look at it, more perfected. Come on down a little bit here, and as you go all the way into it, you see, but these are the root of the symbol. That, come on, man, look at that. I mean, we don't even have to harp on it no more. But like I said, they took, you know, what this is called, this so-called Proto-Sinaitic, Proto-Canaanite, you know, and they used that as a basis to begin their creation of hieroglyphic. Because remember, it was like 600-700 symbols that were created around, were created by the Egyptians during the time of the Old Kingdom, the Kemites, right? But then later on down the line, what they did, when you get into the Ptolemaic era, they added hundreds of more symbols in there. That's why you see more perfected areas in certain temples that are more preserved, because this was the time during the Ptolemaic period where they began to remix and put their drawing and have people enslaving and working over there that were native to the land and inscribing in the stone, so to speak. And so they added on to that right there. And that's where they built this so-called Egyptology around. We're going to get to that in a minute. But I just wanted to emphasize that right there over again so our Moorish king can get it. And we already showed the evolution of what they call the Encoria, the Demotic script, you know, being coming into the Arabic. We showed, you know, the Hieratic script and the Meroitic script. You know, we showed all of these things because the Meroitic script actually is said to be the seed of this particular script. So it would go like from here, you see, into this special area. And then you have both of these languages evolving up out of that. You see, at a point in time, matter of fact, Old Nubic, a Nubian language, is also linked to this, which actually has a form that is also akin to what we call the HEKAPTAH. We gonna show that in a minute. See the HEKAPTAH script, you know, and we call this the misnomer Greek script. So I pulled up an ostraca. That's what that is. That's called ostraca, a rock, stone that was written upon. That's what they inscribed this on in most cases. And this is the papyri of what's supposed to be a Greek, and I call it misnomer Greek script. You see? So you see the same alphabets, just written a little different based upon whoever it was that inscribed it. And then I bring you right back here. There is no such thing as Greek language or Greek culture as apart from the HEKAPTAH. And here it is. This is why I emphasized earlier when I was talking about the kiftihu. And I told you, remember, you know, the hair style, you know, remember, you know, that special lock, you know, that they demonstrated. You can see those things there. I showed you also, remember I mentioned this particular portion here, the style of the beard. When I was speaking, you know, of those special ones, you can see the locks ain't really there, but when you go back further, again, you come back to this picture and look at the beard on this brother right here. Look at the locks, you know, and these are what some people would call so-called Greeks. You see, but in all actuality, you know, we know that this is our people. Look at the alphabet. You see the HEKAPTAH up here. Look at this. This is melanated. You don't see a European anywhere. You can also see like an Egyptian-like characteristic in the drawing of this stork right here. You know, so this is basically Kemetic. And so it says here, said to be the Syrian and Libya and the king Achilles of Greek Batid dynasty. You see, and this is 565 to 560 BC. See, this was found in Italy. You see, and that, you know, this is something else right here, family. So now when you get to looking at this, they think Brother Shaheed crazy when he tell them ain't no such thing as Greek. But we done did the research. Misnomer Greek text. This would be what they would call something out of Greek Bible, right? But when you come over here and you see the HEKAPTAH text, look at it. We already showed you the alphabet, so we don't really have to emphasize that, but we see that the Ankh is here. You know, the Copts were very serious about keeping that Ankh, you know, in the presence of their works. They let you know they were Kemetic at the root. See, this is the Kiftahu. You know, this is that original people, you know. And if you look at it, you know, the Kiftahu word, if we pay attention to it, let's just say if we dealt with the vowels, a replacement of these special vowels. See, the brother got his long beard over there too, right? But you could actually see a connection to the word Coptic even here. If you look at it, the P being interchangeable, you looked at the O here, that would be like Coptihu. You see? Kiftihu is one of the names that's being used, you know, and we go back to HEKAPTAH, we can look at these as being the same people. So from now on, instead of referring to these people as Greek, we refer to them as the HEKAPTAH. Notice what it says. The Coptic is an original tongue, for it derives all its indeclinable words and particles from radicals pertaining to itself. You see, not Greek, not nothing else. Its verbs are derived from its own resources. There is no mixture of any foreign language in its composition except Greek. And that's coming later when the so-called Greeks come on the manifest. But other than that, the Coptic is its own original tongue. So if that's the case, then how can Coptic come from Greek? And they're telling you that the Greek so-called breakdown, didn't do nothing but take away 7 alphabets. That's what the Greeks did. Took away 7 alphabets, kept their own, and called it theirs. See it right here? But the Coptic alphabet is their own. See, they talk about what they call Sahidic and Bohairic. You know, these are the most ancient of those forms. You see, it says Zosimos, quoted by Fabricus, says that the Old Testament was translated into Egyptian when the Septuagint translation was made. Huh? Where's that version of the so-called Bible that was translated into Egyptian, the original? Huh? That's something we need to find out too, right? When the Septuagint translation was made, right? So again, this is all going back to showing you everything came out of Kemetic. No matter how much they try to chop it up, no matter what they try to say to you, how they want to remix it, all of it come up out of Kemetic. Now, let me show you this here. This is very important that we go into this special measure. I have another small slide, and this is going to certain measures of sources as well. This is one of the actual first charts that were presented like around the 1600s. And notice it has Coptic, alphabet Coptic, Egyptian. When you get back further on these documents and look them up, family, most of them be straight in the original language. You don't really see a whole lot of English translation going on in it, so bear with us. But if you notice this alphabet, and this is the Coptic, right? This is the same thing that I just showed you when I was showing you those in that last slide with the brother with the locks in it. The same alphabet, same language here, right? This is called the Coptic again. Not only did they do it there, but they actually admitted calling it what? Egyptian. Huh? So if this comes, and now it makes sense if we say that it evolved, and they like to say from the hieroglyphic to the hieratic, but it's actually the other way around. And the hieratic, came then, your Demotic, and we're using this terminology, which we'll correct later on, but this is what our people understand it by at the moment. Then they say that the Coptic evolved from the Demotic. So if the Coptic was the last stage and then the Egyptian Arabic came behind that, where's this so-called Greek language coming in being before the Coptic? It don't make no sense. You can't keep saying in every source that, it evolved, Demotic, came forth, and then they'll try to say, well, Demotic was also a source of Greek, trying to superimpose themselves into the history when it was already an Egyptian language. You see? And so here's their so-called alphabet Greek right here. Same thing with a few letters missing, but there it go right there. Notice they emphasize in this older book, though, from the 1600s, the Coptic over the Greek, so-called. See what I'm saying? So, these are also Coptic texts. And the reason they do this, because most of the books, you will find they got a Coptic translation and they got a Greek translation, as they call it. But really, it should just be a Coptic translation. But they got to throw that Greek in there now, to try to tie themselves into it. You can see that's Coptic. This is Coptic as well, AKA, when we say this, we're talking about Old Nubian as well. This is Egyptian as well. See, they have it beside the Arabic here, showing a side-by-side comparison here. And I'm gonna actually go into, these are my measures dealing with the source. Now look at what they say here. Development of the Coptic alphabet. The origin of the word Coptic, the words Copt and Coptic, as well as the words Egypt and Egyptian, have the same origin. So Egyptus, Coptic, HEKAPTAH. You see, HEKAPTAH and Egyptus, which is Greek, they come from the word HEKAPTAH. And that is the old Egyptian words describing Egypt as HEKAPTAH, meaning the house of the spirit of Ptah. You see, the house of the spirit of Ptah. So this is people that are basically of the spirit of Ptah, and the teachings of Ptah reign supreme in them. If you want to know the original teachings of the Kiftahu, or the HEKAPTAH, there it is. E means house, Ka means spirit, and Ptah is one of the famous gods of old Egypt. Therefore, the words Coptic and Egyptian are linguistically one and the same word. Remember that. So you can't even say, so when you're talking about Coptic or the HEKAPTAH language, you say Egyptian language, you still talking about the same thing with bringing these alphabets into the play, like we just spoke of. Now, this is, in this particular source, they say the origin of the Coptic alphabet, right? The present 32 letters of the Coptic alphabet, they say are derived from two sources, right? They say the first 25 letters are modified from the Greek alphabet. See, this is what a remix come in here at, right? But watch what they say. Watch how they come back, this oxymoron. It should be remembered that the origin of these Greek letters can be traced back to the old Egyptian letters. Well, why not call them Coptic then, instead of trying to put this so-called Greek in there? That's why we got to have a goodly knowledge of our history. Whereas the last 7 letters are a modification from Demotic letters. In other words, they're telling you what the 7 letters that are here in HEKAPTAH, in they 32, this is nothing more than Demotic letters, which is still Egyptian, still HEKAPTAH. See how these people play? Hold up, there was another measure here. Okay, and I'm gonna pull this PDF up in a second that I cropped from and put here, because it's definitely gonna be necessary. It was talking about the HEKAPTAH. It said it represents the final stage of development of the Egyptian tongue, right? So again, I asked, if this is the case, how does Greek come before the Coptic if it represents the final stage of development of the Egyptian tongue? Somebody got to make that plain. And then it says, in the words of Cyrus Gordon, we have an unbroken tradition of the Egyptian text spanning about 50,000 years. Coptic language, not 50,000, but 5,000 years, pardon self. Coptic language was spoken language in Egypt until 11th century, when it was gradually replaced by Arabic. There are some historical records indicating that it was still the spoken language in some areas of Upper Egypt until the 17th century. It was the language that Jesus, as a baby, visiting Egypt with Saint Mary and Saint Joseph, heard and spoke. So they're saying that he spoke HEKAPTAH as well. Egypt was the only country Jesus visited outside his home country. And therefore we feel that our old country and our language were blessed through this visit. Although the Coptic language at present time is no longer used by a significant number, Egyptians is still, right? A number of Egyptians, it still lives on in the hundreds of the words in Egyptian Arabic dialect spoken every day in Egypt, which is the dialect that I was taught when it comes to the language. That's why I say that's closer to the original tongue because of the dialect. This is confirmation in this particular excerpt that I have here. Egyptian Arabic, not just any old Arabic, but Egyptian Arabic, which is referred to at some time as having the Sahidic or the Bohiric dialect. Brother Mustafa Gadala touch on this, and it also goes into a lot of grand measures, so to speak, when you're talking about, that HEKAPTAH. The Bible was translated in the Coptic language around the 2nd century by Egyptian scholars of the theological school of Alexandria. So what they've been talking about Greek, in the Greek script, in the Greek language, when you look at all these movies about, anything dealing with Catholicism, they all are talking about the Coptic. They say, well, the Bible was translated to Coptic language around the 2nd century by Egyptian scholars. Didn't say Greek scholars, Egyptian scholars of the theological school of Alexandria, who were very fluent in both Greek and Coptic. See, that's the superimposition again. They got to throw Greek in there. They got to add Greek. Just call it Coptic. Why don't you? Right? Therefore, the Coptic translation is considered one of the most reliable and accurate translations available. Goodness gracious. So if this is the case, all these documents that they've been calling Greek, that's really Coptic, that's more reliable than the Greek, which they just admitted it here, right? If this is the case, right? Now you understand why all of the books that were cast out of the Canaan, which were Coptic in nature, such as the book, the Gospel of Barnabas, anything that didn't support, the crucifixion of Yahushua, they cast these things away. Books like the book of Enoch, the book of Jasher, like I got the book of Jasher over here, and the book of Enoch. Both of these had Coptic roots, Egyptian roots originally. They even mentioned the name Osiris in there and Africa in the trend. I ain't never seen that in the Bible. But it's given the same Old Testament history, but it give a little more history on the Moabites and Canaanites. Like whole stories, about, different time. But it actually mentioned Osiris in that particular book known as the book of Yashahar, which was a Coptic book. They have in the book of Enoch that I have both what they call the Greek and the Coptic text side by side. And you'll notice this as you begin to go into reading, and you're going to see that when they translate it the same. So why not just use the Coptic if it's more reliable and more accurate? Because you're using Coptic anyway, even though you're trying to take away some things and remix your own demonstration. You know, so these things we have to point out. This is a measure what they was speaking here, for example, right? You can tell where they remix certain languages and put alphabets in different orders as well, because they have different words. Well, this is actually, these were dealing with hymns that were sung in the Greek, right? These are the names of them, the Doxa Patri, the Agios Theos, you know, which is something dealing with something, look like Egyptian and God right there. Ekristios, which you see Christ there, Anesti, that's where they would have Christ. You see that in there by us having that knowledge, right? Ken and Ephraim, Epo Oro, Tai Shuri, you know, and these are supposed to be other Coptic hymns. The majority church hymns are Coptic because Coptic is the language, it's the dominant language. There are a few that are so-called Greek. Oh man. Boy, I tell you, traditionally, it says there are a few hymns that are usually Greek, you know, that are sung. Keep that in mind. Let me go on. It says it should be remembered that the Coptic language represents the final development of the Egyptian language. If that is the case, I'm gonna use that hammer repetition again. Where in the world do you get that Greek came before Coptic? Because if Coptic was the stage that come after the Demotic, and then whatever come before that was Hieratic, if that's the case, then that means Greek couldn't have been before the Coptic. So how you gonna say that Coptic come from Greek? We got to keep emphasizing this, family, because we want to make sure our family get this. So it says Cyrus Gordon in his book Forgotten Script states that the Coptic church still preserves the native Egyptian language written in Greek characters. Remember I was telling you, if you take symbols and signs, no matter how you turn them, you know, the phonetic value of the actual alphabet is still there, no matter what symbol I choose to put on it. I can use the Arabic script and create my own characters and still be using the format of the Arab. You see what I'm saying? I can use what they call the so-called Hebrew, modern Hebrew script with the dot system and all of that right there, and then create my own symbols and create it and call it another language. But that still wouldn't change the language, change the fact that that language would be rooted in both of those scripts that I mentioned. You see, it's just that simple. That's what the European doing. The Coptic church still preserves native Egyptian language written in Greek characters so that we have an unbroken tradition of Egyptian text spanning about 5,000 years. And as a matter of fact, the Coptic language was the real key to deciphering the hieroglyphic and Demotic scripts by Champollion. Because the Coptic script has always been on the manifest, but this so-called Greek form that they talk about came on the manifest 330 BC. You see, if you're gonna make any differentiation, make that differentiation. Let the people know the truth. As French teenager who living in Grenoble, France, Champollion dreamed of being the one who would unlock the secrets of the Rosetta Stone. We're finna let you know about this so-called self-proclaimed and famed Rosetta Stone in a minute. He studied both ancient history and Coptic language. It's a Christine Harbison in her book, The World of the Pharaohs, describes Champollion as a genius with a gift of language, including Coptic, which he mastered early, believing correctly that it would be the key he would need one day to understand Egyptian. Later on, he used his knowledge of the Coptic language to decipher the hieroglyphic writings on the Rosetta Stone. Oh my goodness. So if the Coptic again, along with other different hieratic and all that, and we got proof of this in many different papyri, which we're going to show later on down the line when we get to that level. You know, if the Coptic, you know, is the language they were using, then why are they trying to tell you that these symbols is the language? When they know they translated the papyri, some of it from Coptic, some of it from hieratic. Why are they trying to tell you? Because this is Ptolemaicism, Egyptolemaism. All that way when you see the ones getting up there with these symbols, you know, talking about they breaking down the metal netter, that's Egyptolemaism, family. That's not the Kemetic way. You see? It's not. All of this comes from the Ptolemaic dynasty. See? So it says, this great accomplishment of Champollion widely opened the doors of unlocking the glorious mysteries of Pharaonic Egypt. And they wonder why Ptolemy's name was on documents. Of course it was there, because he enslaved people and threatened to put them to death, you know, if they didn't do what he said do. That's how they, you know how they get down. We ain't got to tell you, you know, exactly, you know, how these things go. Our Moorish kin already know what time it is. So let me show you something else here, because like I say, I want to show you all of these drawings in regards to dealing with these sources. Now, this source that I was drawing from comes from here, because they even talk about how the English language, you know, being traced through the Latin and all of that right there. It goes back to, you know, the ancient Egyptian as well. You know, they're talking about that. They go through the different forms and the different strokes, and they going back to the how the Canaanite language come on to manifest. What I was speaking of a few minutes ago. Matter of fact, we'll read it for you. Well, it says Paul Johnson in this book, The Civilization of Ancient Egypt, succinctly, it says summarizes the development of modern Western alphabet from the ancient Egyptian alphabet in the following. The Egyptians mined at this Sinai site. And remember I was talking about that colony that went over there, that mixed breed, you know, mixture between what they would like to call, you know, Semite, which really Canaanites. You see, and it says they mined in this area. This is Proto-Sinaitic. You know, this is the area of Sinai. You see, both during the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom, during the reign of Amenemhis the third around 1800 BC. Remember they gave the date on the language when I showed you the symbols around this same time, right? Semitic workers were used at this site. One of them, evidently a man of creative ingenuity, became familiar with Egyptian hieroglyphic writing and determined to adapt it to his native Canaanite language, then unwritten. No, he didn't become familiar with Egyptian hieroglyphic writing. This Canaanite invented that alphabet of the writing in Proto-Canaanitic script, so to speak. You see, and this became that language spoken of in Isaiah 19 in the Piscean records, when it said all five, the people of Kemet, 5 nations would speak the language of Canaan. You know, and this is where the European again began to try to make these connections between pictorial script and actual alphabetic script, because the actual pictorial script that was produced by this Canaanite here, right, an ancestor of ours, took symbols, right? The Kemites didn't do that. The original Kemites wasn't teaching that way, right? It was this particular area where the European adopted that from. And I can go to E. Wallace Budge's text and he actually speak on it. And so they thought, okay, well, we see this being demonstrated this way, so let's try this, you know, as well in this particular area as well. So it says his stroke of genius was to select the alphabet sounds from the hieroglyphs, right? It says rejecting the consonantal groups and ideograms. The new script survived and gradually spread north through Palestine and Syria, acquiring cursive characteristics in the process. So they're telling you that this script actually originated in the Sinai Peninsula and not in Kemet. Huh? All right. The new script survived and gradually spread north through Palestine and Syria, acquiring cursive characteristics in the process. In the northern Syria, during the ancient port of Ras Shamra, it took on the cuneiform style, and that is, it was adapted to the writing materials of the area, tablets, stylus. See, so whatever they was writing with, they began to use these symbols in the form interchangeably with the alphabet, basically, is what they was getting at. It say, thus Ras Shamra script, ancient Ugaritic, has no other connection with Sumeria or Babylonian cuneiform. It is merely a modified form of the Canaanite Egyptian alphabetical script. Sound like Mustafa Gadala, though, don't it? It say it was gradually adopted by the entire region in various forms, and above all by the Phoenicians, who had an alphabet of 28 letters in the 9th century BC. The Greeks took over the Phoenician alphabet. They did what? They took over the Phoenician alphabet, which is really Egyptian, more or less as they found it, retaining even the names of the letters. They reversed the direction of the script from right to left and left to right, but the really important change they introduced and made essential by the structure of their own non-Semitic tongue was the vowel sign. They switched the signs for 6 Canaanite consonants not used in the Greek, to the Greek vowels, and thus gave the word the structure of the alphabet more or less as we have it today. The ultimate source of the Western alphabet is therefore ancient Egypt. Yeah, when you're talking about the prophets' teachings, but not in the bastardized way that they bring it for. You see? And so, yeah, so these are measures here, and I'm gonna get this PDF over outside Moorish Ken for their own research and studying or whatever. This particular PDF here, it's just one that has different forms of, showing you this so-called, adaptation of the Greek alphabet. You can see that they still basically the same thing as we showed you earlier. And so this would be something that you will be able to use as we go into this special portion. You can also see certain connections. This is what they talking about, the words that go back to the Demotic, in which you can see the hieratic, and they want to throw the hieroglyphic in there, which they trying to compare to this symbol, this here to this. Then they want to compare this to this, and then compare this symbol to this letter, this, and they reach it. This is how they came up with the hieroglyphic, comparing symbols, to the alphabet. It don't work like that. Right now, I can put these hieroglyphics next to the ABCs and write it out, just like I did with the Egyptian Adeptus research Sultanate measure. You know what I mean? That's the English expression up under that, but I use the script side by side with the symbol. You see what I'm saying? But that don't change the nature that that's English up under them symbols right now. You see what I'm saying? So these are things that our people have to know and have to have a knowledge of. All of this stuff here, and like I said, I'm gonna get this to our Moorish kin because they'll be able to use it as we go along. But you have to disregard the things that you have seen that have been written by these various scholars when they keep telling you that Greek came. Now, Greek gave birth to Coptic, because I done proved that that's not the case. You see, I proved that it's not the case. This is one of the Lord's prayers that they have in the so-called Greek language here. You see? It ain't funny that they use the term Maresi, which is definitely a word that goes back to thy kingdom come. Maresi. Powerful. Yeah. Well, let me go to my next particular drawing here. This is what I want to go to, the Rosetta Stone. For those who have seen people constantly refer to the Kemetic alphabet and linking it back to the Rosetta Stone. Listen to what it says here. And this is dealing with the history, a brief history on the life of Champollion. This is the Rosetta Stone. They want to throw you off by seeing these symbols up here. And then you see the Demotic here. Then you see what they call in Greek here. But in all actuality, this come from the time of Rosetta. It didn't come from the time of the Old Kingdom. Listen to what it says. The Rosetta Stone therefore belongs to that period in Egyptian history when it was ruled by foreigners. That's all you need to know about the Rosetta Stone. If this came from the time when it was ruled by foreigners, then what that tell you about this particular bus right here?
Islam, National Sister Grand.
Okay, Islam, Grand Man.
Yeah,
you can't see it?
Yeah, it needs share Islam.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it do that sometime. Because I be sharing it, and next thing you know, there you go, Grand Man. I appreciate that. Can you see it now? Islam, can you see it now more?
Islam, we got you, Grand Man.
Okay, I want to make sure. All right. So the Rosetta Stone, this is it right here. Notice they have the symbols here. They got all of, this is supposed to be what they call Egyptian, right? You know, they would call this hieratic, right? You know, but we know that this is pictorial script right here. It ain't nothing more than a cursive form of what they call the pictorial, you know, inscriptions. We ain't talking about inscription as an alphabet, but that's the way the Ptolemies created it and tried to demonstrate it along those lines by comparison to alphabetical symbols that they were already dealing with. So this is Demotic, and this is the Greek, and Champollion was said to use this, you know, particular bust. It says the Rosetta Stone therefore belongs to that period in Egyptian history when it was ruled by foreigners. So what that tells you is that this particular bust here was created by foreigners long after the Kemites had been on the manifest. So you cannot decipher the ancient language of the Kemites based upon what the Ptolemies came forth with. That's why I call it Egyptolomaicism, pardon self. And so if this is the case, again, the Rosetta Stone therefore belongs to that of a period in which Egyptian history, when it was ruled by foreigners, in this case by Ptolemy V. It was the official view of the British that the hieroglyphics were cult symbols used by the priesthood for initiates. In other words, it wasn't meant for everybody, the symbols. And that was the original standpoint of the ancient Kemites. They didn't teach everybody to break down in the formulas of those symbols, you know, which are really scientific formulas by which one is able to encode creation, you know, and decipher creation and decode creation. You see, find measures of solving the problem, so to speak. You know, nothing more than the form of symbols like that of an algebraic equation. Those symbols have mathematical properties to it. And that's what family can draw for, and metaphysical breakdowns. I showed our Moorish kin. We're going to get into that later on. It said they had been adapted by foreign conquerors. I want to make this plain. It was the official view of the British that the hieroglyphics were cult symbols used by the priesthood for initiates, and that they had been adapted by foreign conquerors. First the Greeks, then the Romans, to express the names of foreign rulers by attributing a phonetic value to each hieroglyph. Goodness gracious. I just exposed the whole, oh man. And yet and still, you're going to still have some of our people think they translate. It's telling you that they put the names Ptolemy in their own, during their own time. You ain't going to see the name Ptolemy back during no ancient time. It just don't exist. You ain't going to see no Cleopatra. All that come during the Ptolemaic 33rd dynasty. It say, in fact, classical literature confirmed the use of this script by numerous foreigners in Egypt. It is reported that when the Persian and Darius built, it said a canal from the Nile to the Red Sea in 517 BC, he set up monuments commemorating the achievement using the hieroglyphic script, right? It says after Alexander the Great 356 to 323 323 BC, there continued to be references to the use of the script by Greek authors. Through the 1st century and later also by Roman authors, John Zetzes in 12th century speaks of Chaeremon, an Alexandrian scholar of the 1st century who had written a treatise on hieroglyphics and knew how to translate into Greek. It's a Clement of Alexandria about 200 AD wrote a major work on hieroglyphics. It's a with most extensive explanation of the script, and a lot of them didn't agree with the European. A lot of them, these ones here, actually agreed with each other. Horopolo. This is one that Mustafa Gadala often refers to. You know, when he break down the stanzas and so forth and so on. Horopolo, and I have the Horopolon glyphs, and I'm gonna bring them up in due time. But all of them are breaking it down from a metaphysical standpoint. You see, and they didn't agree with Champollion. You know, that's the thing that you don't know when they be throwing these names out there. Horopolon also authored a treatise on the subject, so to speak. It says, and reportedly in Egyptian, which was translated by one, Philippus, into Greek. And Herodotus, it says, also referred to repeatedly to the ancient scripts. Tacitus reported that once when Germanicus Caesar went to Thebes, it says he had an old priest read for him the hieroglyphics. And see, this is what I be telling you when they have the original natives of the place on standby. You know, E. Wallace Budge just went into the measure where he gonna have them translate the whole demonstration and take credit for it. That's why we keep telling you that, and then tell you he was guessing at the things that he did interject. You see? So he had them read from these hieroglyphics from the old monuments, right? This is what he's saying, right? One of them related, you know, a thing of Ramses and the king of one of the very early dynasties. You know, so in the case of Greek authors, they referred to 3 forms of script: hieroglyphic, hieratic, a cursive form of hieroglyphic, and demotic, all of which they imply with different scripts for the same language. This is what they are saying, right? When they add that hieroglyphic, and you got to take that out of it. You know, I'm talking about because the hieroglyphic that they call in the symbols, again, is nothing more than a superimposition of the Europeans in the Egypt-Ptolemaic system. So it say all in which they applied. Champollion noted that Clement of Alexandria had written that even in his time, those among the Egyptians who received education learned the 3 genres of Egyptian writing. The knowledge of the hieroglyphics died out as the language and the script gradually replaced by Greek and then Coptic and Arabic. So now you have them talking about it's coming from Greek, then by Coptic. No, it was Coptic then to the Arabic. Stop it. Ain't no such thing as Greek up in there. So these are measures that were on the manifest, family, dealing with this drawing. And last but not least, this is the measure where Champollion had made this statement. This was an 1809 letter to his brother. He wrote, "I've thrown myself into Coptic." He said, "I want to know Egyptian as well as I know French." Why did he go to the Coptic? He didn't go to the Greek to know it. He already had a knowledge of that. Why did he go to the Coptic? Because the Coptic or the HEKAPTAH was Egyptian. It was already there. You see? So it was easy for him to say something about some Greek later on because you're dealing with the same thing, but just certain things have been taken away. That's why they say you don't supposed to add or take away from the truth. "I've thrown myself into Coptic. I want to know Egyptian as well as I know French because my great work on the Egyptian papyrus hieroglyphics will be based on this language. My Coptic is moving along, and I find it the greatest joy because you have to think, to speak the language of my dear Amenhotep, Seth, Ramesses, Thutmose is no small thing. And these are all what they would call Greek variations, but really HEKAPTAH. As for the Coptic, I do nothing else. I dream in Coptic. I do nothing but that. I dream only in Coptic, in Egyptian. I am so Coptic that for fun, I translate into Coptic everything that comes to my head. I speak Coptic all alone to myself, since no one else can understand me. This is the real way for me to put my pure Egyptian into my head. In my view, Coptic is the most perfect, most rational language known. This was Champollion himself speaking and saying this. You see? So there's a lot of research, family, that we got to do. You know, it's truth and falsehood strangely mixed in some of this information that they have, but when you know the truth, you know how to separate the bone from the fish or the shell from the peanut, so to speak. You see? And let me pull this special drawing up here. This is my last one that I have on the manifest, because you heard me speaking also about what is called Old Nubian. Now we know that we said most of those original Christian texts were translated first. The Septuagint was translated, you know, into the Coptic. Now this should let us know too, which is Egyptian. This should let us know too that the dates that they given ain't right. Because if the old books can be transliterated or were found to be in this special measure, you know, and being traced back to that time, the original text, then this lets you know it's a lot more older than 330 BC. When they start calling the language Greek. That's all it is. When 330 came in, they started calling the HEKAPTAH language Greek. That's the only thing that happened. But let me share the screen right here real quick for our Moorish kin. And hold up. This is our last slide that we want to put out here. And it take a little time to really get into these measures, family, but we want to make sure our family thoroughly got the drawing. You know, and this is dealing with the Nubian text of the Christian period. Now, why didn't you know anything about this? Because it was cast out of the Canaan and called pseudo. I wonder who did that, and I wonder why they did. Now look at this particular text, and I got stuff like this right here. And also, you know, the heretic and everything. These supposed to be, you know, what we would call, well, let's just go here. In 1811, Quatermir brought forth evidence from Etukius and Abu Salih, dating from the 10th to the 11th centuries, that the Christian Nubians wrote in their own language, as well as in Greek. See, that's always going to be there, Coptic. Anytime you see Greek, you notice why they always throw Coptic next to it. And Syriac. You see, although Lepsius, you know, his expedition obtained in Nubia and in the Sudan, few peculiar inscriptions of Christian origin, it was not until 1906 that the discovery of the Nubian writing was definitely made. In that year, that's a crazy name, skimmed it. They say in Egypt for the Royal Library at Berlin, some fragmentary MSS on the parchment and puzzling language, and before the he identified the latter as Nubian. Whereupon, with the help of the modern dialects, Henry Schaeffer quickly deciphered a large part of the text, which fortunately compromised some of the recognizable passages from the New Testament. Like when you get into this old Nubic, the crucifixion don't exist for some reason. Now think about the Gospel of Barnabas. So most of these Coptic and old Nubic texts, because you're talking about HEKAPTAH, you're talking about old Nubic, basically. They don't have that crucifixion in there. Go figure. But I just want to, without going through this here, because we'll send all this to our Moorish kin as well for their own reading or whatever, you know. But I want to show you what it looked like. Did somebody call that Greek? Did somebody call, you know, what we know as HEKAPTAH now in this Nubian language, did somebody call it Greek? That's what I want to know. Man, and most Christians have no idea, you know, that these things exist. This whole translation right here. And if you find any of them where they obtain, you know, the measures dealing with crucifixion and crucifixion, you can believe there's some remix in there. But them original texts, they don't have that stuff in here. I'm just showing you just the different portions of these translations, you know, from these special measures. But these are dealing with from the time of what they call the Christian period. You know, the Nazarites, the Nazara, the original, you know, Kemetic. This is where all your Coptic teaching is rooted at. You see, we can't get around it more. So that's my special measure at this point. But what we'll do in our next measure, we're gonna go into some of the aspects of dealing with the language, and you know, as we get to the next phase after that, you know, we'll be able to go and do our own research and dig into some of these things. You don't have to know this whole language, and because we ain't trying to learn how to speak these particular measures here, you know, but this is for our own independent research and for us to know the true history that there is no Greek. It is HEKAPTAH, and we call it Old Nubian, you know, without doubt or contradiction. So at this time, you know, what I want to do, I would like to open up the floor, you know, and I don't see Act 1 there. I know our Grand National Secretary of State was on a mission, you know, she's traversing, which I got a call from her earlier, but she looking forward to the playback. So at this time, we'll call forth our beloved goddess and queen, Sister Offset Amun El, because I don't see the chairman there either. Islam. Islam, can you hear me, Sister Offset? Are you there? All right, well, I guess our sister must be.
Islam.
Okay, you got a real echo, because you gotta mute out one of your apparatuses. Mute the other not that you ain't using, and come in on the other one. Islam.
Okay, Islam. I was trying to get you quick. I was running from one room to the other.
Oh no, all is well. Take your time.
Islam.
Islamism
okay.
without the schism.
Gratitude for calling me forward. First, let me rise and give all praises to Allah and all honors to our Prophet Noble Ali, honors to our Moorish American government, our officials of our government, and our citizens. Honors to the Moors online, and honors to you for bringing forth our National Supreme Grand Sheet, for bringing forth a grand Sultanate Adapt research class this morning. Man, you took us into a whole lot. I was traveling with the speaker so I could listen while I tried to attend to some business. And how you sure that everything goes right back to the Coptic and the Moabite bloodline goes right back to the Semitic and the Canaanite bloodline, and man, you was traveling. One of the things that interests me a lot also was the Septuagint translation, which really went into Egyptian, and it had nothing to do with this European breakdown with the King James that they have everybody believing, and then you broke down the Coptic origin, which goes back from the Kemetian, which is Egyptian, to the Nubian, to the Kemetic. I was just trying to jot down all the different things that you brought forth. And one thing that also interested me was the Egyptian Ptolemaicism, which is the dynasty that you spoke of. That Egyptian Ptolemaic dynasty that you spoke of, That was that when Rome started intervening, coming into Egypt.
Oh yeah, that's exactly when they came in. You know, I
Okay,
actually created a pictorial expression of, you know, what took place during that time, and it tell you what was going on. I'm gonna share the picture with you real quick so you can see it. Cause I had put it out here a few weeks ago. Yeah, it's very important that our people know this, because they won't get caught up in what Rome is, you know, putting out here when they know this. You see? Hold up. Here we go, right here. Let me know when you see it, sis. Okay, can you see that?
It's coming. There we go. Okay, Islam. Okay.
See, that was the 33rd dynasty, which is where they 33rd degree come from when they took us off the count. See what I'm saying? They tell you everything. Yeah, see how it speaks on, you know, the Ptolemaic period, 332 to 330 BC. Egypt is ruled by people of Greek Macedonian descent, 32nd dynasty Macedonian. Then it goes into the event of Alexander the Great. You know, one of his general, Ptolemy I, seized control. Many Greek and Macedonian senators are recruited into the army of the government. Greek culture is encouraged. In Kemet, Egyptian cities and monuments are given Greek names. Ptolemies are fascinated with Egyptian religion and culture, and pictures of the Ptolemies are made in Egyptian style. Ptolemaic rulers are looked upon as divine. Ptolemies follow the ancient Egyptian custom of rulers intermarrying within the family. You know, many temples are built for the Egyptian gods. So some of those temples are Ptolemaic over there. Greek gods become identified with Egyptian gods and often are combined. You know, Egyptian gods are given Greek names. Under the Ptolemaic Egypt, it seizes control of Judea. Now, you know, it goes on to Liberia, Alexandria, and all of that is special demonstration. You know, all of it come from their remix, Islam.
Okay, and that's what caused the idol worshiping and everything else that came into to play. Okay, I understand. And so that's why you that breakdown right there just went into the that's why you say ask the question if the 330 BC was when the Kemetian I forgot how you break it down, but you really said it's really HEKAPTAH texts, which they call Greek, wrote into the Rosetta Stone. And that Paleo-Hebrew script is really Iberic script.
Well, the Paleo-Hebrew script and the Iberic script, all of them have ties to each other. You know, even though the Iberic have a slightly different the way they turn the alphabet and turn them around, and in essence, they all come from the same root, that one alphabet that spanned through what they call Phoenician, Egyptian, Archaic Greek. You know, all of them come into a relation to each other, which proves that there was one language as it was spoken of in regards to dealing with the Tower of Babel. Islam?
Oh, okay, Islam, gratitude. Okay, so yeah, I definitely going to study those things that you brought forth on the manifest. Islam. I'm gonna try and do my homework. I might have to work next week, but I'm gonna still try.
Oh yeah, and this video will be out there. So, you know, Brother Simpson Bey, you know, Rasul Bey rather, you know, he will upload it and we'll put it out there on the manifest so that our family can get a drawing, because this is key, this is important. Because as I showed you, even dealing with the melanated root, it showed you who the original people was. So yes, we've been giving the so-called Greek too much credit. Go ahead, sister.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. No, I was agreeing with you, but the pictures that you showed, even up to 100 BC, they still was wearing dreads and locks, which we call in the island just plait. But yeah, that was important, because most people think that when they say Greek, they think European, because we've been brainwashed into thinking the Greeks were European.
Yeah, and that's the main argument when you hear, like when one go to speaking, the term more come from the Greeks. and what they mean is European. You see what I'm saying? But if you look at it in the context of we showing you who these people are, the HEKAPTAH, Etruscans, you know, and you see if they had it in their language, okay, well, this was our people. They didn't give us this term. They actually adopted the term Mari from the inhabitants, but they had their own way of saying the word Mari. They call it Moros. You see,
Right.
but it was still our people from whence this term come from.
Okay, so that's where they got that term Morisco from also?
Yeah, I mean, that came later through the Latin and all of that, you know, but the Latin is supposed to be evolved out of the Greek, as they call it, but that we know is really HEKAPTAH. You see?
It's not.
And so the Etruscans, in other words, you know, they preserve these words. That's why you see the word mar there in relation to dealing with the people. You know, and but you know, ones use these arguments when they go against each other, not even in the Moorish paradigm. When they talk about, you know, certain measures brought on the manifest, you know, they give the European too much credit. And in some cases, it wasn't the European that was there, it was our people. That's why they tell you the original Septuagint was actually translated, you know, into Egyptian. I want to see it. Huh?
Yes. Yes. That's something to first definitely investigate. They got that one hidden somewhere. Either behind those are Catholic walls up in the Vatican. They probably got it hidden up in there. That's one of the books that probably got on lock and key.
Yeah, for real. And the thing is, Sister All said, even more proof of this, I had put a measure out there before when I did a lot of the stuff on the Cadmonites. And they had a particular drawing up here. I'm gonna show it to you as well. You know, and this is just supporting you in the measure that you demonstrate in what you're bringing forth. Let me show you here. It's right. Yeah. Okay. Not there. Trying to find it. Okay, not there. Okay, I know what it says. It's actually a little further right here. I put this out there a while ago when I was dealing with the name Mari, and I was trying to show our family, you know, the pictures and show them how far back the name goes. Where is it at? Okay, here you go. I'm coming up on it right now. Okay. Come on, come on. Come on. Here, go here. Okay. Oh yeah. I got so many things. You know, I go in my archive right here on my Facebook page and I find a lot of the stuff. Let me see here. It's that one statement that's very important. And the Moors should get this book too, by the way. It's called Egypt, you know, in Eden. I got to actually get the copy of the book myself as well. Let me do it this way right here. I'm gonna go because I'll probably be able to find it quicker here. Let's see. Not there, not there, not there. Not there. Come on. I gotta put some files in order in this demonstration too, because I got stuff all over the place in here, man. Goodness gracious. And then I think that's why my computer be moving so slow. Because I got so much in here bogged down into it. Okay.
Don't feel bad. Mine's the same way. Got to put them in files.
Yeah, and what it is when I'm pulling it up, it's moving slow. When it open up the pages, it ain't moving as fast as I would like it to move. Trying to pull that. Oh, where you at? Okay, not there, not there, not there. Yeah. I probably end up having to send it out at another time, but where is that? This demonstration look like it done got lost in the sauce, as they say.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, basically it's a area that I have in here is dealing with speaking on the Mari, you know, and what it speaks of, it shows how this word goes back to Egypt. You know, it goes back to Egypt. I don't know why I can't pull it up here. I can't find it right now. We'll probably end up having to send it out at a later period. But it's in a lot of I spoke on it. If you go back to looking at the video dealing with the Moors and the Mari, I mentioned it in there. So what I'm showing is that all of these things, they come from Egypt, you know, unbeknownst to many of our people, you know, but the European has taken the credit for it. You know, they have remixed it, so to speak, and we can call it the remix if we want to. You know, they remixed it. And this is why it is that our people are finding it, having a hard time, so to speak, learning about the truth, you know, from this special measure. So you can go ahead, Sister Offset, on what you
well, it's long. Oh, I was finished, Mo, because I didn't get to jot down a lot because I was trying to listen at the same time as doing something else while I was listening. But I did jot down the first part while I was in here sitting down.
Yes, praise be to Allah.
Gratitude call me for it. And we probably gonna have to the brothers got to do that 2 o'clock call on Facebook Live. Today is the last Sunday of the month.
Islam.
So we probably gonna have to drop off in a minute so we could go open up for the Moors that are coming in.
Yeah, praise be to Allah, Islamism. We just gonna let our Moors come forth in the next few minutes to give their measure, because it ain't a lot of Moors on here. And so Islam, praise be to Allah.
Gratitude.
Gratitude, Islam. Okay. So at this time, I want to call forth our beloved brother Anu Rasul Bey.
Islam,
brother, Assistant Chairman.
Islam, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear with divine ears.
Gratitude for the class, man. Gratitude. Let us rise and give praise to our Father God Allah, and honor to our Holy Prophet, Noble Ali. Honor to everything that is Moorish, Grand National Flag, and the seal, divine Constitution, bylaws of Moorish America, Islam. And you know what I got from the class, you know, as you were speaking about the dates stemming from the Platonic period. Actually, matter of fact, I know last week I was traversing last week in this class, but I know you also spoke about this either it was last week or the week before about the Platonic period, and then I think you was talking about we are the question and the answer, dealing with also the 33rd degree, dealing with masonry and things like that. But more also too, as you were speaking about the Coptic, and you know, no such thing as Greek. And also too, why people are buried at. You know, they're buried in that New Testament. They're buried in that Bible. They're not able to distinguish the truth or even want to listen to the truth. So yeah, we can present a lot of time based to try to get them to get that paradigm shift moving in the heart, the closest place to meet Allah. You know, and I was also thinking about too the beginning of Christianity, 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea. You know, and like say in Rome, there's another key player too, by the name of I think his name is Athanasius. He also was a bishop out of Alexandria, out of that Greek demonstration as well.
Athanasius.
Yeah, Athanasius, yeah. And he was also a key part in that as well. But there was also too, it was a particular priest or more that was against that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they either tried to take him out, but he had their truth and they didn't like it. So I think they took him out. I got to do more research, but I think they took him out when I used to actually try to, wake my people up as well, doing, I would say that first paradigm shift for myself, being in the church, and then, seeing, I come up on a book, which I think was a paradigm shift for me, coming out of, I want to say, coming from the Christianity or ministering training. It was it was dealing with Yehoshua in the Quran, and dealing with that there was neither they crucify him or neither they kill him. So that sparked a lot of my interest as well. But once again, Council of Nicaea and the dates, the atomic period, that's grand demonstration as well. So we know now, if I'm not mistaken, that goes with the so-called, the Egyptians mistreating the children of Israel. You know what I'm saying? Ones may think this is our own people mistreating our people, but this is actually during that Platonic period, what you were speaking about, correct?
Actually, that goes a little further back to the Hyksos.
Hyksos, okay.
Yeah, it was the Hyksos, because they invaded long before they came. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, you're still the same spirit, though, in essence. Yeah. That was another time. And they say there came a Pharaoh, that knew not Joseph.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Okay, gotcha.
It was one that knew not Joseph. He had to be formed because every other Pharaoh, had known him. You see what I'm saying? It speaks of that too in the book of Joshua, Yashar.
Joshua, gotcha.
Yeah.
One more question too. So would it be that the Hyksos actually open up the way for this Potomac period?
Of course. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They came, and after that, it was always a foreign rulership.
Okay.
There was always a mixed multitude coming behind that. And actually they ruled from the time of the 15th all the way up to the 17th, probably beginning or the end of the 16th dynasty. And you will see that their ruler was known as Yakubah. You see, Yakubah.
16th.
Yeah, 6, dealing with that number of imperfection that they demonstrate, right? Thinking with we'll say the urges as opposed to, the divinity. Thinking with the passions instead of the spirit. So yeah, these are particular ones that come on to manifest. And Yakubah, Yakubal, or Yakbal made me think of the three ruffians, if you ask me. You know what I mean? Yakubah, Yakpar, and Yakbal. They actually even had that in the dictionary. Ikbar, which actually is supposed to be, they say Jacob, Yakub. You see what I'm saying? The Hyksos, HEKAPTAH, which is where the name Caucasian or Caucasus mountains come from in the first place. See? So the Hyksos came out of those mountains. Islam? Yes, sir.
Gratitude.
Yep. And the only reason they was able to get in there, brother, is because of the love. That's why I say sometimes we can love so much to where we open up the door for our enemy. Our love for everybody. They say somebody who loves everybody don't love nobody. King Mina, basically united Lower and Upper Kemet. And at that time, them ones as nomads, if you go and look at the book, Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams, it'll tell you how they moved as nomads, and they were already forming, along, the certain areas coming in.
Yeah.
And when he united it, it allowed everybody to come in. And that's where these ones came in and basically usurped. They began to intermingle, mix in, and then they planted their coup. Let's take this whole demonstration over, and that's where the corruption came from. And all of that was according to the divine plan, though, because it said that would happen. But then, you know, if you go into Isaiah 9, he said he was going to send a perverse spirit in the midst of Egypt. And he said that the people would also come up out of that state and he would send them a redeemer, you know, and it wasn't Moses that it was talking about. You know, a lot of people like, oh, this is Alexander the Great. They try to give him the same credit when it comes to being dual Cornyn in the Grand Quran, but it was really our brother Agus Khan, you know, that really took them and ran them off up into that special region and roped them off. Surah 18 talk about the people that was in the cave in the Caucasus Mountains, you know. So the Lord of Two Horns is referred to dual Cornyn, which is Agus Khan, because he has the horns, you know, in his headdress, which came from Heru, the goddess of Kemet, which is the Dendera, you know, city. They had one in Sinai and everywhere else. So, you know, the Turks are descendants, you know, of the ancient Egyptians. So that's not strange. So it's a lot of stuff more that a lot of our people don't know, you know, Islam, but it's very important. Go ahead, Grand Man.
I was saying Islam, grand measure, gratitude.
Islam, gratitude, my brother. Yes, sir. And thank you for your measure. Peace and love. Well, all right. At this particular time, we'll call forth our brother Muhammad Bey them because we know he'll be out of here in a little bit. You want to come forth and demonstrate your portion, brother Muhammad Bey? I don't know if the brother already has left. Well, all right, maybe he has. Well, let us call forth then our beloved brother, Dr. Marvin Edwards Bey. And I know he got a drawing to bring to us on this mission.
Oh, absolutely. Islam, can you hear me, God, man?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear with divine ears.
Okay. Hold on. Do I got my video on? Yeah.
No,
yes.
I don't see your video. I see an icon there. You got to turn your camera on.
Oh, wow.
It's a camera icon. You know, the camera icon is right there in the bottom there.
Okay.
You see it next to the mic icon?
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I'm actually trying to go into the different cameras, you know, that I have. I thought the regular computer camera would show. But yeah, I don't want to hold the class up on that. Okay, yeah, I am Dr. Edwards Bey, Consul General out of the Texas Consulate. Praise and honors have been given. This is a very powerful class, and I was, you know, listening to you, and you was going and talking about the HEKAPTAH. That's something I need to research on. I mean, you know, and I'm sure I can get with you at another time or whatever and find exactly where I can get that particular information. But going back to that Ptolemaic, you know, I had just read this book by not Chancellor Williams, by Brother Williams, that goes into the actual breakdown of the historical origin of Christianity. And, you know, and it's not strange that you know, you had brought that information about the 33rd dynasty, you know, and that really lit up, you know, my whole understanding of what actually happened. Because I used to wonder what happened. How did the Europeans actually, you know, take over? And then, you know, like, I stopped to wonder sometimes, like, was this ordained or something, or were they going by their natural instincts to come in and then just, you know what I mean, over a period of years, of like centuries, you know how they came in and infiltrated and like the language itself, how they copied the language, you know what I mean, and remixed it, you know what I mean, and inserted themselves into history, you know, saying that they were the ancient ones, you know, but it was all the Egyptians. I mean, it's just so profound at the depths, you know what I mean, of how these people, what they went into to do this, you know. I mean, it's just really amazing. And yeah, talking about his brother Walter, yeah, the name is Walter Williams, how he talked about the different, it was like five ecumenical conferences, you know what I mean, where they, you know, and it all started after Alexander the Great had took over, you know what I mean, and like, it just sort of like the light just went off, oh, okay, I see it now, you know, how everything that we're being taught, you know, all of the pictures that we see today are actually the Europeans after they had taken over. You know what I mean? And they actually, through torture and murder, you know what I mean, and putting our peoples up against the wall, you know what I mean, those that were, you know what I mean, that was kind of weak anyway, to aid and assist them in implementing this deceit, this mass deceit. You know what I mean? And it just shows how they was doing this after, you know, over a period of time, you know, how they gradually put themselves up as being divine, you know what I mean? Copying Osiris, you know what I mean? And this dude, Ptolemy I, how his image was infused with Osiris and how he actually began to get a divine nature, you know what I mean? A human nature and a divine nature. And, you know, it's just so powerful. And yes, we do have to do the research on all of this. And you've given us a jump start, really. And it's so powerful. And I'm just so grateful for being here to be able, you know what I mean, to be privy to this knowledge, with this wisdom and this understanding, because these people, you know, just that's how they erased us. You know what I mean? And that's how they got our people over years of amalgamating as well, you know, and putting themselves in, you know, how they so nice. They ain't never been nice. They always been treacherous. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Ruffians. I mean, that's just their nature, you know, but, you know, they have all type of peoples, you know, they got the church, and which is what it was all about, that church in Christianity. You know, and they had started even before Yehoshua had came on the scene. That's what's so powerful. You know, they had set up this image of Christ before Yehoshua had came on the scene. I mean, and it's just so amazing. And you know, I can go on and on really, because, you know, I mean, to come into this knowledge after it had been kept from me all these years, and it's, you know, like how we say, well, maybe we did some things, you know what I mean? But this shows that we actually did. We were those people that invented writing, you know what I mean? And language in the alphabets, you know, like, it's just so amazing. And after coming into our Moorish American government, the prophet has prepared us to appreciate these things. You know, it has prepared us to take our place among the family, the human families. You know what I mean? And know that, yes, we're going to be the leaders. I mean, we got to lead the way, because all of our family had taken part, you know, I mean, after so long, to get certain privileges, just like today. You know what I mean? They were given certain privileges, certain titles, so they went along with it. But we, the Moorish Americans here, you know, after being prepared by our Prophet Noble Ali, in our Moorish American government, is the only way. It is the only way out. You know, it is the only way that our people can get back into being themselves. Because anything else other than outside of this Moorish American government, it's a lie. You know what I mean? It's a misnomer. And I'm gonna leave it right there and just say gratitude for allowing me to speak. Islam and peace.
And Islam and peace to you as well, grand man, for that drawing. I found what I was looking for too, by the way. We give honors to you. And you can see our brother Walter Williams speaking on a video online. Matter of fact, we'll play that when we get ready to close out. But this is what I was trying to show all set earlier. Notice this is Eden in Egypt. But they say verse 14 is another good example of the original Egyptian origins of this text. The term being used for lights is Mari. You know, when they say, let there be light, you know, this is the first, this wasn't dealing with no sun. This was the light, and it tells you that the word Mari actually means luminary, a light being. This is in the book of Genesis now. That's how far back it goes. And that goes back to the Kemetic root of Amen, which is Mar. You see, that's where that connection come into play at. The hidden one that becomes manifest. Let there be light. See, that's the real meaning. The term being used for lights is Mari. So when you try to trace the word black back, you can't trace it back through various different languages in its root and go back there. You can't go no more than 500 years. You talking about going back to the very root of creation, family. You see? You see how old that name Mari is? We ain't talking about the land mass alone in the hundreds of thousands of years on the land. We're talking about this demonstration go back to the very time in creation, right after the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters in the book of Genesis. And he said, let there be light. That was the first act of the creation commencing. So Mari been on the manifest with the great God Allah from the very origin. This ain't nothing made up. This is the truth. The term being used for lights is Mari, which was derived from the Egyptian Mari, meaning brilliance. Since the Egyptian version of the word clearly refers to the sun, it would seem likely that the Hebrew word mod for seasons was derived from the movements of the same sun, or the final words of this verse is shene, which means year. So they're going into the aspect of the actual word too that's connected to the sun as well. But this Mari, let there be light, in Genesis verse 3, you know, let me show you what I'm talking about right here. I'm gonna go to the actual text, and like I say, you know, that's what they call it Hebrew, but we know that it's really Proto-Sinaitic, Proto-Canaanite. I'm gonna show you exactly what I'm talking about right here, Morris King. So we had put this out here recently and not long ago as well. You know, it's nothing wrong with revisiting things for clarity. And this is 3 with 3974. Mar. You see? See it right here? Look at what that is. The root, when you remove the two vowels, M and R, non, this is a part of the speech, non-masculine. Transliteration, Mari, you see? A luminary, right? But then it goes here, a noun. You see, the noun is a masculine noun, right? But so it says the word, from the word definition, a luminary, right? Bright light, lightning, lights, shining, right? Noun, masculine luminary. Genesis 1 through 6. They give you all the particular areas where this is actually spoke of at. In the whole Piscean record, it's all up through there. Anytime they were talking about the light, in most cases in the Old Testament, they were talking about Mari. In other words, Amun Ra. We can go so far as to say that right there. Let there be lights in the expanse. It still uses the same word. Let them be for lights. In Genesis 1 and 5, Genesis 1:6, you know, just more through the whole Old Testament. Exodus. Come on, man. What more do we have to say? Islam. Let me get my sister Carter, baby, because I know she's stirred up over there. Islam, sister.
Islam. Gratitude. Dr. Dendra, Ani, Kurtabe. First, let me rise and give praises to our great God Allah. I give honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I give honors to Act One.
Miss Sister Islam. I apologize again. Okay. And I'm Sister Kurtabe, Islam.
Okay. You want me to go ahead now?
Yeah, most definitely. I was just apologizing to you, sister, for your attribute.
Oh, okay. I give honors to this class, and I give honors to you, God man, for all that you do. And as you was talking, wow, you covered a lot of things. And I wanted to ask too, when you was showing us how pretty much the Greeks, you know, we know that they are not. They're not the original. Even though they try to show us where everything ties back to them, but we know everything goes back to our teaching, to the Kemetic teachings in the language. And I wanted to ask you about in my journey to the Moorish American government and learning in different things. I heard about different teachings and different alphabets. And it was one guy, he wrote a Bible. I don't know if you heard of him. He wrote the original books of the Bible. He used, when we was in Christianity, he was trying to teach us about and show us about, just like what you're saying, how they took when Alexander went into Egypt. And we didn't call him Alexander the Great. We call him Alexander the Greek, because he went in there and stole everything from our ancestors. And a lot of them, they even threatened our ancestors with death to help them, you know, to rewrite our history and stuff, to help them, you know, plagiarize our story and get there and put them in there. But nevertheless, this young man, and I learned a lot from him, but he still, because he was telling us, he said, if we didn't understand the language, like what you teaching, he said, if we didn't understand the language, then we wouldn't understand none of the stuff that were, you know, to get to the truth, we had to know the language. And he talked about a lot of teachers when they be teaching, he said they didn't have the original language. And I don't know, he down there where you at, and in Florida, and he got this church called the Holy, I say Cuptic, but I don't know, he spelled it Qubtic, Holy Cuptic, a Coptic church. I don't know if you heard of him, Brother Vamar. He is a part of the Assyrian, what I had in it. But anyway, he taught a lot about, showed us a lot about how we, all those people in the Bible, like Moses and Isaac and all of those people, they looked like us. And but anyway, he wrote this book called The Original Books of the Bible. And he called himself explaining word by word, Genesis 1 all the way. And he did a good job on some of it. Then he do get kind of far out. And then it was another man, the Africans who wrote the Bible. I don't know if you heard of him, Nana Banchi Dakwa. That's Darkwah. Anyway, we had I ran across several people who tried to do like what we are planning on doing, because now that we got the pen in our hand, we writing our own history and stuff. But it was just interesting to me to see how you know, from the very beginning, how they tried to incorporate themselves in our you know, in our lineage, but they are not a part of our you know, you can just see it. It was very interesting to me, and I just thought about, you know, the different books I had come across, and you know, but they still be calling our people Black, and they still don't say anything about Moors. And then even with the young man, I think he sit up on he say he was Dr. Yacht Scribe. And like I say, he's down there in Florida. He got the right idea cause they trying to start, they into doing their own, growing their own food and doing all of that, but they're not, you know, like I say, they got the right idea, but they don't say anything about having their own government. And I understand now clearly why y'all be saying it takes a mole to teach a mole how to be a mole, because if they don't claim their free national name, you know, they can't teach us. They can only give us certain things, you know, because they are not consider themselves as Moors. And when you know who you are and who made you, then you'll be able to teach us the right way. I just found it interesting because I got all these books here, and like I said, they was in my journey when I was coming up. And of course, I understood some of them, but you know, my mindset, I just wasn't ready to grasp all of that at that time. And I'm gonna go back and look and see if I can pull something from those, you know, to get a little bit of history from them of whatnot, and compare what we're saying here to what they, you know, what they have put out, you know, to see if they're still leaning toward that European teaching. They really coming from our ancestors' teaching. Islam, gratitude for letting me share.
Yeah, Islamism, sister. Yeah, most of our people over here that wrote a lot of books, you know, again, they wrote based upon the Eurocentric thought pattern. So you hear people talking about the Egyptologists or even chematologists. Their chematology and their Egyptology, you know, is basically they suckled from, you know, the teachings from the Europeans, so to speak, as opposed to our own teachings. And that's where the conflict of interest is, because they are taking upon Ptolemaicism, Egyptolomaicism, and they don't even know it. So when a brother like me come along and tell them that ain't right, they think they know better because they've been doing this stuff. But this is according to Champollion. This is somebody who went in, the Rosetta Stone was found in their particular time period. The ancient Egyptians don't know nothing about this stuff. You see what I'm saying? This came way after the Old Kingdom. So how you gonna use an Old Kingdom methodology to translate something that was hundreds of years and thousands of years before that? That's like me trying to use the English alphabet to translate some hieroglyphics. How you gonna do that? That's crazy. That's insanity. Now I can take symbols from the hieroglyphics and put them on the side of an English letter and then write in them symbols and then say I'm writing Egyptian language. But if I'm writing English up under there, you know, you looking at the symbol, you'll swear it's something else, but in all as no, that's the English language. And so it's the same thing with the hieratic tongue, you know, and the Demotic. When they translated certain words from hieratic, Demotic, you know, and what they call HEKAPTAH, you know, all of these things were really the true writings when they were using symbols to really conceal what it was that they was writing. And now you go around there looking at monuments and trying to translate symbols, and the papyri is over here, hid somewhere. Well, you ain't gonna get nothing out of them symbols. That's to keep you on a wild goose chase, to keep you away from the papyri. Well, you find the papyri and the ostraca with everything written on it that got the actual alphabet on there. Uh-oh, now somebody in trouble. You see? So Islam got us. And also that term Kup with the QU, that's a brother that basically took the Arabic term.
Oh, okay,
You know,
okay.
Kup is the Arabic term for Coptic.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know, that's all it is.
It's
You know, he maybe, and that let me know he ain't really knowledgeable, because he would have just said HEKAPTAH.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I showed you earlier.
Uh-huh.
You know, meaning the house of top.
Yeah. And
You see?
he said they come from the original church, you know. So when you talk about church, you know,
Well, he trying to speak on the Coptic teachings that I spoke on a while back.
Uh-huh.
You know, that's what he's trying to go into.
Okay.
You know, but even the one that I told you, the Moors, when I was saying he went into initiation after the time of the prophet Hamid Bey, went through the same exact adept degrees the prophet went through. You know, that's the Coptic fellowship that was established by them. You see what I'm saying? And the prophet went through those chambers before Hamid Bey.
Okay.
You see, though some people try to say Hamid Bey, you know, taught the prophet. No, Hamid Bey came after the prophet.
That's right.
You see, he came a few years. He didn't come to America until like, I want to say 27, 28 or something like that. The prophet was had already been to Kemetic by that time. You see what I'm saying? But the degrees in the chamber that Hamid Bey went through, I can say definitely was the same. You know, because he dealt with the 7 adept degrees, and you know, he have Italian roots. You know, but he went through a lot of adept tests, so to speak. I'm trying to show you a picture of this particular one real quick, just to give you confirmation of who I'm talking about. Okay, here you go, right here. And they call him the 7-ring master after he let's see here. Okay, here we go, right here. Yeah, this is Hamid Bey right here. And notice the demonstration that he have on. You know, this represented after he was able to master and go through his special demonstration in Egypt, swimming through that pit of crocodiles and so forth and so on.
Oh, okay.
If you look here, it goes into all the different lessons that he taught on. And all that stuff right there dealing with the 7, you know, degrees in the chamber, the capstone, and, you know, cornerstone, and telling you exactly God created creation, eternity, prosperous living, creative power and sound. So it's telling you that he came out of the same school of thought that our holy prophet was initiated in. This is just another confirmation of that.
Okay.
You know how I always break it down in our adept degrees and deal with the 7 adept degrees.
Right.
You know, and I come across this after, you know, I divinely prepared that special measure and brought it forth. You know, but one truth never contradicts another truth. Proper nutrition, self-mastery, you know. So all this stuff right here is the same thing that we've been telling our Moorish kin.
Right.
So that's the original Coptic teaching is Kemetic.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Islam. Anything else you had to add, my sister?
Oh, no, Islam. I'm just listening, but gratitude for let me share Islam.
Islam and gratitude. All right. All right. Is there any other more that would like to come forth and give their portion before we close this demonstration out? All right, brother Bati Bey. What have you to say, grand man?
Islam, praise and honor is already given. One thing that I enjoy about this class is that we are really able to take this and just break down it to the ones that don't really know. And I used to, when I first started working at my job, we used to have to work on the street where all the college dorms were. And you see all this misnomer Greek writing. And I see brothers and sisters that are part of these fraternities. And I used to, just doing general research was that I knew that wasn't Greek. You know what I'm saying? I used to always, push it out that it was I always tell them it was Ethiopian, because that's what I as far as my research do. I didn't really get into all the Coptic until the realizing that the first Bible, the oldest Bible, was a 1599 Geneva Bible, which is said in there we are Moors. And so just like you've been saying. But the thing that one question that I did have was when we're looking at the 300 BC, I have my mind kind of is I can't get around how to tell which one is older, which one is younger. When it says 300 BC or it's 1500 BC, which one is closer to our time? Because of the way that I think they go back. I'm not sure how it is, but that's not something I've been able to grasp. Is there a way you could clarify that for me?
Islam, yeah, when they talk about BC in these Gregorian calendars family, they talking about before Christ. So think of Christ. Christ supposed to be how many years from now? 2,000 years, right?
Islam.
So if they say 1500 BC, that's 1500 more years added on to that, which would make that what? 3500
yeah.
BC. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's how it is. You know, it ain't, that's the simplicity. Now, if they say AD, then you know that's after Christ. Anadami.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Islam.
But
Yeah,
Islam,
like I say, they got certain things still out of whack though. Because in certain Gregorian calendar, like I was telling the family, they say Egypt was established 3100, then some say 2600, some say 15, some say 4000 BC. All these Gregorian calendars. So somebody lying. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I say we're going to have to put the timeline. We're going to do that after we go through all this. Necessary, we go through this history. So once we get back to the original, then we'll put all the timeline, the proper name, and what we will refer to these things as, you know, to the audience when we speaking to it, as opposed to what the European call it. We rewriting the history. We ain't playing, family. We will not sit back here any longer and keep saying this is the Greek said, this is the Greek. No, we exposing that God. You know, anybody that fight against us on this here, they the enemy of our people and the enemy of themselves. You know, not that we hate them or nothing like that, but we're just saying they are in opposition to knowing the self. Islam?
Islam.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Graham, man. Anything else?
Yeah, so the ancient Cushites goes into the Kufatu, and then the Etruscans, the Russians, and then it's the HEKAPTAH. That's the HEKAPTAH language?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the ancient, when I say the Kifti, right? And I was showing how if you change the letters in it, you can see Kapta, the HEKAPTAH there, which we proven that the language of the HEKAPTAH is the language of who would be the indigenous people that was in Greek known as the Kiptihu. You see? So whether we look at it either way, it's still dealing with the HEKAPTAH people. You know, the HEKAPTAH language. Like I say, when you say Egyptian or Coptic, you saying HEKAPTAH. Those who are of the house of Ptah, right?
Islam.
So in that other measure, what was the other drawing again?
Oh, the Etruscans and
the Etruscans. Yeah, and that's just another phase, a later phase of the same Kifti. Okay. You see, and you know, because when they talk about the Greeks and the Romans, you put them in one bag, bro.
Islam.
You know, still talking about the same people at different times or whatever the case may be. You know, so when you go into that aspect there, that's where that comes from. Islam.
Islam. Gratitude.
Yes, sir. Gratitude. You know, and what would give us major timeline, just like I was showing our family that the word Mar, you know, goes back to in time antiquity, but also when you come up into the new era in time, it was preserved through the priesthood of Amun-Ra, you know, the light bearers, them the real light beings. We the one that carried this demonstration, like G.M. James said from Kemetic after it fell, all the way over here. And that was during the 13th intermediate period, when the Libyans, you know, who were known as the Mir or the Mari or the Moor, who established, you know, those, we can say fortresses, so to speak, going across North Africa and Carthage and, you know, even the Ifriqiya and all that. That was all our people coming across there to settle in the area and calling themselves the Mari at essence. You see what I'm saying? And so this is all stuff that our people have to know. And they'll stop again trying to act like the concept of Moorish and being Moor is limited to being here in the United States. And you can't trace the word black back beyond this special measure. Now we got a demonstration where they was given the description in the Kemetic language, you know, the word neket, a neket, you know, which they said actually means dead. black. So if they gonna throw the Kemetic book away, I can't wait to get ready to get hold of one of them with that particular measure there. They gonna throw the Kemetic book away because they want to get mad at the Moor because they see black according to sign mean death. You know, so I want to know, is they gonna throw the Kemetic teachings away now? You know, the translation that they got through the E. Wallace Budgite demonstration, are they gonna throw that away? Because right there in the book, they actually use that terminology. I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. Some of y'all may have already seen it. I'm gonna show it to you right here as we go along. Here it is here. These things are very important that our family notice because it's all ammunition to bring our people into the truth and the consciousness of who they are. Now check us out right here. Right here. What we had to measure in here, what we were dealing with, name some of the Moors that were put upon the Moors of Northwest Mexico by the beast, Satan. In 1774, Negro, black, colored, Ethiopia. In reality, what is a Negro? Negro is an animal that has 4 legs. This is from the 102s, right? It say, what is meant by the word black? Black, according to sign, mean death. Then it goes into what color mean and everything else, right? And why we can't be Negro, black, and color. And they get mad at the Moors for this. But right here, the word neck, right? Now, if I was a selective researcher, you know, I'll go to just harping on the whole measure, but we don't have to do that. We just showing what it says. It says strong white, right? But then it say, i.e. dead, right? White, right? Of color, right? Then it says dead black of color, right? So just looking at this special measure here, we know that this is dealing with the concept because we know even the European, according to their definition at one time, in the English now, we ain't talking about going back to the book Ancient and Modern Britain that get a proper interpretation, but the Europeans define black as white at one time. You see? And the same thing, vice versa. So you look at this word naked, you know, sound like naked, right? But anyway, you know, dead, black, you know, it's just measures like that right there. But I'm just saying, would somebody become fanatical enough, you know, do they have the same energy, you know, for this E. Wallace Buzz teaching that they have for our teaching, from us saying that Islam.
Or if you look at neket and necro, like the prefix neck,
see what I'm
neket
saying?
and necro. Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Exactly. Yeah, but I don't think they want to have that same energy though, brother, when it comes to that teaching. You know, they'll justify that. You know, they'll do some selective isolation when it comes to that word right there. You know what I mean? So people hating the Moorish paradigm in the Moors and don't even know nothing about the Moors. And I heard who it was. I think it was Seti that was talking. And some other individual, might have been Reggie. You know, it was Reggie. Now that we found our scholars, you know, Moors coming to us telling us dumb, and that's where the real beef come from. Moors so knowledgeable in what they know to where, you know, they hurt a lot of feelings along the way in telling the truth. And so ones rose up in opposition now, in opposition against the Moors and want to tear the paradigm down because the Moors hurt them in a time when they wasn't as conscious as they think they are now. So this is the real beef. I heard him say it on there. They would catch us and tell us we were stupid and we were dumb, and now we have our scholars and they didn't think that we would go and do the research, and they still ain't really did the research. You went and did selective research. Said he went and did that for you and brought you back a bunch of garbage. And y'all been coming at the Moors ever since. You still ain't got it right. You know what I mean? So Islam. All right. Any other more before we close out? That's biting at the bit. We want to make sure everybody got a chance to get a measure now. Islam, Brother Gaia.
Islam, family. Let us continue to rise and give praise to our Father God Allah and honor to our holy and illustrious Prophet El Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali.
giving high honors to our Moorish American theocratic government, our divine constitution and bylaws of Moorish America, giving high honors to all officials, all citizens, and all consulates in Moorish America, giving high honors as well to our Egyptian research Sultanate class and all the Moors on the panel and for the grand measures. And, I just want to say gratitude once again for more clarity because, as we see, we can get lost in the, the watering down of these timelines and the history, when they keep superimposing, this Greek term with the Coptic. And, when we seen the little layout, the layout of the, the alphabet, through the different names and the cultures that brought about the different forms of it, we can see that, it was altered once you give us the historical breakdown. And, along my path, I was given the Tahuti, Wesakaf Kara El. And of course I added the L to it being my annexation, through the free national name, but that being, just relevant to basically the languages. So that's been part of my my endeavor to perfect that attribute, being the scribe and the bringer of the the languages and all these things. So this is a gratitude for helping me to achieve that measure. And it also brought more clarity because when I was looking into the Hieratic and the Coptic, last week, and when we was doing a comparison with the Arabic, we seen I was running into the Sahidic and the Bohairic dialect, which I was unfamiliar with. So now, that also bringing more clarity as far as that being the Egyptian, for lack of a better word, dialect of the Arabic, as far as, what I'm getting from the measure, if I'm correct. And one of the questions that I have is, when I look into the Coptic, it's really, Gnosticism is very closely related to Coptic, to the Coptic, measures, whether it be found in a scroll or whatever, these different type of records that they say they find. But is the Nag Hammadi a good reference for us to begin to transliterate when we start to deal with this Coptic alphabet, Islam?
Really, what we gonna do as far as dealing with the transliteration, all that'll be on our own time, so to speak. Whatever we choose to transliterate, it'll be on us. But what I will say is this, we just gonna show our family, certain measures on how to go, on a word for word demonstration to get measures to the manifest, but it really don't matter which one. We just showing our family. So if you so happen to get a book, that's in the Coptic, you can go in there and transliterate your own measure. You being that we speak English, it wouldn't hurt to put an English translation beside it, but it also come from a high degree of more science, so to speak, when you transliterate a particular thing. Because there are plenty of words that mean one thing in the English, especially when you talk about Gnosticism, and in our Moorish Holy Quran, that can be transliterated in the way that we demonstrate it with all the adept lessons that we have. You see what I'm saying? So that's the main key, when we transliterating it in the Prophet's dialect or the Prophet's language, through more science. Islam?
Islam and gratitude.
Yes, sir, gratitude. But yeah, I have a lot of that stuff. Like I was telling the Moors about this book here called The Other Bible. Had it for a long time. This thing here literally about 30 years old. You know what I mean? But it got like and these ain't even all the books. This is just some of the books that was taken out of the canon, and they considered it pseudo. They got the ancient alternative scriptures, the Gnostic Gospels, the Dead Sea Scrolls, visionary wisdom text, Christian Apocrypha, Jewish pseudepigrapha, the Kabbalah. And this is just the four that they naming. But when you get into the actual depths of the book, you find books such as, because them were categories more than anything. You got, the Book of the Secrets of Enoch, Second Enoch, Jewish pseudepigrapha, the Book of Jubilees, the Book of Haggadah, the Manichaean creation myths, the Secret Book of John, the Origin of the World, the Apostasies of Archons, the Apocalypse of Adam, the Gospel of Philip, the Paraphrase of Shem, the Second Treatise, the Creation of the World and the Alien Man, Mandaean Gnosticism, Kabbalah, Martyrdom of Isaiah, the Fourth Book of Maccabees, the Passion of Perpetual, the Story of Akkar, the Genesis Apocrypha, the Manual of Discipline, the Damascus Doctrine, the War of the Sons of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Letters of Aristeas, Wisdom, Literature, and Poetry, the Songs of Solomon, Jewish pseudepigrapha, Thanksgiving Psalm, Dead Sea Scroll, the Odes of Solomon, the Gospel of Truth and the Valentinian Speculation, Gnostic, the Gospel of Thomas, Gnostic, Hymn of the Pearl, Gnostic, Manichaean Hymn of the Cycles, Gnostic, Coptic Psalm Book, Manichaean Gnostic, the Gospel of the Hebrews, Jewish Christian, Gospel of the Ebionites, Jewish Christian. Man, there's so many books in here, family. And it just goes on and on. Hey, it got the, the teachings on Hermes in here, So like, all I can say, and I done read a lot of this stuff, read through it and, went through it, and a lot of stuff similar to what's already there in the records, but it also unveils certain things that people didn't know. You know what I mean? And this, this book right here got things. This ain't all of them. It's just a part of them. So all the books, it'll be stacked this high, family. You can sit it on the floor and still see it on my computer. You know what I mean? So who told them to take them out is what I want to know. And how did they know that they chose the right ones? That's another question I want to know. Who gave them the authority to say that this shouldn't be in there? Because low key, they still study them books right there. And if they get caught studying them without the permission of the Vatican, then they excommunicate. So Vaticanism is just like Masonic degrees. Ones can't go outside of the degree that they studying in. You better not let nobody know that you went outside that demonstration, or you gonna have some problems. But they call it, they demur you or something like that there. Demote you and everything else. But anyway, all is well. That's the drawing, family. So without further ado or delay, because I think all of our Moorish kin is pretty much fed. What I want to do in closing this out, I want our Moorish kin to see what our brother Walter Williams said. Because I didn't even know this brother was demonstrating on this measure till about a month ago. But he been saying the same thing that we said, Moors. We're going to close out with this. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay. Here we go here. All right, there we go there. Let me get the share.
Writings with drawings. So what's hieroglyphics? Cosmically balance the female. So there's balance there. See? So they say, well, if the hieroglyphics have never been decipherable, where do you get the word Hotep and Mea? Or Pharaoh, any type of word. I explained to them, Mea is a word, Hotep is a word. Any word is a word. It's all, but that has nothing to do with the hieroglyphics. Because Mea, Hotep, or Mea is a word, Hotep is a word. And the meta is the hieroglyphics. The hieroglyphics. Okay, meta hieroglyphics. Sacred, supposed to be sacred writings. Sacred, not writings, but drawings.
So why would these people just make the claim and say that they deciphered it and they hadn't actually done it? What's the goal with it? What's the underlying goal behind that?
Well, I see. I was going after Western academia Western academia, in order for them to have control of our ancestors' histories, ancient Egyptian, and their culture, they had to institutionalize it. So therefore, this is part of them institutionalizing our ancestors' culture and civilization, so they can say that they're Egyptologists. There's no such thing as an Egyptologist. If you're an Egyptologist, tell me and speak the language that our ancestors spoke over in Egypt during the time of antiquity, ancient time. Speak that language if you're an Egyptologist. Tell me how the Great Pyramid was built. That's another mystery that will never be solved. How did our ancestors, ancient Egyptians, build the Great Pyramid? Okay? Can't solve that. We'll never know that answer. Okay? So I was going after Western academia to tell Western academia, you have not deciphered the hieroglyph, because Western academia wants to put an alphabet or alphabetical value to symbols. You can't do that. So I was going after them. But the brothers and the sisters out here went into Western academia, believe what Western academia is saying about the hieroglyphs being deciphered.
Well, they uphold that as law.
Oh, repeat that again.
They upholding this Western academia as law. They're saying this is what it is.
This is what I'm saying.
I'm not saying I know, but I'm saying that's what they're saying. They're saying this is absolute because Western academia says so.
Correct. But I'm saying that I'm calling Western academia out. So no, you have not deciphered the hieroglyph, and you know that. Because I went over to the University of Chicago and I talked to Peter Piccioni over there, who was teaching the hieroglyphic class. He was a professor over there. And I pressed him, and he told me, he said, well, you're right. The hieroglyphics has never been deciphered, but I have to teach this class. Okay? I talked to Frank Yorko over there, who's another scholar over the University of Chicago, who set up the exhibit Inside Egypt at the Field Museum. He was teaching a hieroglyphics class. And I pressed him, and he had to admit, no, it's never been deciphered. See? So what I'm saying to you, there's a lot of things out there that needs to be challenged. And that's one of them. So I have went into Western academia and challenged them to why the Metametric hieroglyphics has never been deciphered. But the brothers and sisters out there, they took what Western academia said and said, well, they're on the side of Western academia against Walter Williams, which is okay. But again, if you want to use Western academia's reasons or use your own reasons. Now, mind you, that these brothers are very, very good researchers. I read the book that they wrote against me with my name on the front cover.
Who are these guys?
They call themselves the Amun-Ra Squad. Right, which is fine. These guys are very good researchers.
Okay.
Okay. But they have not demonstrated or wrote in the book that they wrote repudiation against what I'm saying about hieroglyphs never been deciphered. They have never wrote in that book how a symbol called the hieroglyphics have been deciphered. They haven't said that, haven't done that, haven't did anything. They just, there's a lot of technicality.
And you know what, in the conversation, like you said, they can decipher the name Seti or the name Pharaoh or well, whatever name that you get, right? But they don't decide, they're not able to decipher the symbols. And that's, I think this is being confused in the argument. And they mixing up the actual language or words with the mathematics. And so I think that's the issue. I'm not sure, but I think that's the issue. It seems like they're not being clear, absolutely clear with what's going on. You got some people using the word translated, and then the verse is deciphered, and it's just a bunch of confusion going on.
Yeah, transliteration and all that kind of, those are nice big words.
Yeah.
Technical words. The average person that's in the average Joe Blow, he probably wouldn't know what you're talking about, which is okay. So I asked any individual, the bottom line is this. If you say that the hieroglyphics been deciphered. I asked based on what?
That's it. That's it right there. Well, something else came up not too long ago about King Tut, and they said that it was a study saying that his
I'm gonna
DNA
stop this right here, man.
is more common
But
to
you
West.
can go and watch it because it's a longer video than that. But I never really knew about our brother, you know, until I ran across actually some guys, the ones that he talking about wrote the book about it. And I went on their show one night. And I was telling them, you know, about Mustafa Gadala, and they wanted to start acting with the NBCism. So I stepped off from the platform and told them, you know, I'm gonna let y'all have this. And the brother like, nah, man, why you leaving now? Cause brother, I ain't here to play no game. Freedom ain't a game to me. And I say, brother, if you saying you demonstrate the laws of Ma'at and this is your show, you shouldn't let somebody do this to your guest that's coming in. So a dude that was jumping in the conversation to try to derail the conversation while me and this brother who owned the channel was talking. So when I seen that, he was like, nah, brother, don't leave. I like, peace and love, brother. And I left the thing because we wasn't gonna be able to dialogue. I'm not here to argue and jump up and down and none of that. That's how I treat him. And so nevertheless, the brother wrote a book, like actually trying to debunk the elder. And if you look on their channel, they're trying to decipher the hieroglyphics or teaching a group of them to decipher it that way. And so all these people are united against this elder. And I didn't find out about him until I ran into these people. And so when I ran into him and started building with these brothers, trying to draw with them, and I tried to bring that to them, and seeing that they was talking about what this elder had brought to the manifest, that made me go look into who this elder. And the elder saying the same thing that I've been teaching over here for the last 2-3 years. The same exact thing that I'm saying. So I say, pray be to Allah. Perhaps, you know, it's a reason why I came into contact with them brothers. You know, the ancestors brought me into contact because y'all attacking one of our elders. And now he got somebody on the manifest that's finna show you exactly, you know, how these things done been done. And, you know, the brother did his work. He done taught y'all. He done wrote books like the brother Marvin Evans Bay Show. And, you know, was demonstrate even the concept of 33rd, that I didn't know nothing about. I was demonstrating the portion that I brought forth. I put that together based on history. But in the book that brother Marvin Evans Bay got, which I never read it, he can tell you the title to it. He's saying the same exact thing that I'm saying. And this independent research, he did his research. I don't know where at. I did my own research. But that's why we say no truth contradicts another truth. Now they can't see all of this stuff here because they love Rome. They love them Roman gods in whom they know nothing. So when we say this, they feel like we're attacking their paradigm. How you gonna get mad about us debunking the lies that Rome told us and still say you pro-black? Whatever that means. Still say that you pro-conscious. But when somebody try to bring you consciousness, oh man, goodness gracious. I'm gonna just leave it right there, Morris King, because y'all know what I'm getting. I ain't got to say nothing. Islam, at this time, we're gonna turn the meeting back over to your family. And we're gonna keep doing it, but our next session, we'll go more into actually dealing with the alphabetical system. I'm gonna send these documents over there to our Morris King, these PDFs, so you can go through them on your own time. Islam. Beware of the timeline of the European, and also beware of that so-called name Greek. Islam. Peace and love.
Islam.
Islam, brother.
Oh no, I was about ready to read the warning and Holy Covenant. January 15, 1920, a warning from the prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must put an end to all radical agitating speeches while at work, on their jobs, homes, or on the public streets. We advocate peace and not destruction. Stop trying out your cause with Europeans, for it causes confusion. There has been much confusion caused by members find out their cards. The cards are for your salvation. Failure of obeying my orders will be of severe consequences. We are for love, true peace, freedom. And when these principles are violated, justice then must take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens that seek to hold malicious feelings towards the government or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive the reward from Allah for the unjust deeds. All true Moors must obey the laws as laid down to them by the prophet. And if they lose confidence in the prophet, give up your card button and cease wearing your turban affairs and return to the state where the prophet found you. For this is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans, to all true Moorish Americans, that they may do their part in protecting the prophet and the temple. This is the everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Islam, Holy Covenant of the Asiatic Nation.
Islam. Dr. Batibay.
Yes.
You said, let me see here. The last part, I guess you'd rather have a different one for the warning. You said something about the government in the temple.
Yeah, I'm reading one from the I'm reading the one out of the Hadith book.
Okay, I did. You know what? I did the very same same thing, man. I tell you what, I go ahead, I email you a copy of it, but I'm gonna go ahead and do the warning. Islam. And then you can follow, but you can follow up with the Holy Covenant of the Asiatic. Islam. Once again, family, we want to all praise be to Allah for us being, how can I say, our brother's keeper. And with that being said, we're going to say January 15, 1929, a warning from the prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must end all radical agitation speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens who hold malicious feelings toward the government or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet Noble Ali, founded through the prophet, through the will of Allah, to redeem his people for their sinful ways, by order of Prophet Noble Ali. Islam. Go ahead, Grand Man, with the Holy Covenant of the Asiatic.
Islam, Holy Covenant of the Asiatic Nation. Ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother hath given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all, and your love to each other. Peace. This meeting has now been adjourned. Islam, peace and love.
Islam.
No, great class.
Moors, high science, highest of science.
Great class.
Islamism without the
stiff. We love you, Moors.
For the host.
Islam, brother Simpson, brother Rasul Bey, where my ring at?
Hey, actually, no. Actually, you know, I that's why yesterday I was doing a lot of moving pieces yesterday. So, hey, check it. Yesterday was grand though. We got, because I want to do copper versus silver.
See it. Let me see his work.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's see that.
Yeah, he did his work similar to the one. What I got this one. Actually, it's this one right here.
Yeah, so I gotta get the seal. Yep, get the seal done and all that. But yeah, so I wanted to do copper, so we had to find the right master mold. So
Yeah,
Make it
yeah,
a little cheaper, you know, make it a
We'll
little
have
cheaper.
these available at headquarters soon.
No, actually, you can go on more unique, but a lot of the contributions go on to headquarters. You know, that's what we do as council generals, you know, try to create to support our government. Islam?
Islam.
Islam.
It's
All right, Dr. Shaheed, once everything come down, I'll be shooting it to you.
all right. Peace and love.
Peace and love, family. Islam.
Peace and love.
Attitude.
Praise the Lord.
Love, boys.